Okay, so Carol, I'm going to host this one if that works for you.
No, I think I
Surprise,
should host
surprise.
it, actually.
Yeah.
What is the feature-length podcast? Anyone?
The feature-length podcast is a show where three idiots talk about film and entertainment.
Good answer.
Hey guys, what's up?
Hey, are you talking to us?
Yeah. I'm talking to the voices in my head.
Like, I truly don't know. It felt like a fever dream. I swear to God, I could not
It sounds so
make this shit
stupid
up.
hearing that.
If you're listening to this is a podcast.
Welcome back to the feature-length podcast.
Welcome back to the feature-length podcast.
Welcome back to the feature-length podcast, a podcast where we talk about movies and TV for a feature length of time.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the feature-length podcast, a podcast where us three friends sit around and talk about movies. I am joined today, as always, by Dan.
Hello.
And Carolina.
Hello.
Let's get right into it this week. We're doing something a little different. We've had a lot of different themes on this podcast. Most of the time, the themes still relate to movies we talk about that are somewhat older. I think the most recent movie we've talked about has been a year old, with the exception of our catch-up episode where we just sort of vaguely talked about a bunch of movies that we had seen pretty recently. But this is our first full episode deep dive on a brand new release. And that release is The Batman from 2022, written and directed by Matt Reeves, starring our Pats, Zoe Kravitz, Colin Farrell, who you would not know is in this movie because holy shit, and lots of other people. John Turturro as Carmine Falcone. Yeah, lots of people. It's,
And Paul Dano.
Oh, Paul Dano. How could I forget? Paul Dano, the man himself. So we're talking about The Batman, as I said. Now, this movie, as we are recording this, we have all just seen it very recently. Dan and I saw it less than 24 hours ago, and Carol, you saw it like a day and a half ago at this point.
Yeah, 6 p.m. on Thursday.
Well, there you go. 48 hours for you.
Today's a Saturday.
Today's Saturday.
Yeah.
Yes. It's Saturday.
So everyone knows where we are on the calendar.
Yes, it's very important.
We are in space-time.
We're hoping to have this episode out very quickly, so people can, see this and have something to hear about in context of this movie. Because I'm sure there is nowhere else on YouTube you can get discussions of the Batman.
No. No one else is going to talk about this movie.
Yeah. So what we're going to try to do for anyone that maybe hasn't seen this yet is do a spoiler-free discussion up top, and also just clearly say, like, this is when spoilers start. Really, the purpose of the spoiler-free discussion is just going to be to get our general thoughts out and maybe kind of, like, let you know whether or not this movie would be for you. Because I know sometimes people genuinely listen to this stuff to be like, I don't know if I should watch this. Because most people aren't us and just watch anything because they don't have anything else going on. So if that's you, then we will try to, let you know if you should watch this up front. And then we will get into a more deep dive on the movie because there's a lot to talk about. So first and foremost, what did we think of the movie? General thoughts. Second point is going to be like, would we recommend this? What stipulations do we have about recommending it? And then the third thing I want each of us to say is also, as of right now, obviously very close to release, how do we feel about this movie in comparison to the Dark Knight trilogy? Which really, like, I was going to say, like, where do we rank this movie in terms of all the Batman movies? But, like, by default, just by seeing the trailer, you know that this is above everything except maybe the Dark Knight trilogy. Like, there is no debate about, like...
I don't know, Batman and Robin was really good.
Yeah. George Clooney, like, I don't know, pretty stellar performance in that one, maybe. No, I mean, this is obviously, like, in that tier list. So when we're saying Christopher Nolan, what we're really saying is, like, where does this rank in terms of Batman movies? So, do one of you guys want to start? Because, once I start talking about it, I won't stop. So maybe one of you guys should start.
I can start because I saw it first. Just
Yeah,
going in
that
that
makes
kind of
sense.
order.
You son of a bitch.
Sorry.
You would see it first.
Yeah, so I think I didn't have the right expectations in mind going into this movie. Obviously I loved it, like, up top, I'm just gonna say that. But I listened to our video that I wasn't in, about all of your predictions, like the day before I watched it, or the day that I watched it at work. And so I was hearing all of your discussion about what could happen, and I had all of that, like, front of mind when I went to watch it. And then I was like, oh, this is like a crime mystery movie, which I think I wasn't expecting, which I guess I should have because of the Riddler. So that was, I guess, not the vibe I was expecting, but I did love it. I do love a mystery. I thought the performances were great. I will say I also did not expect this version of Batman, especially for the first half, to be a sad little emo boy. And at points that kind of came off as, like, funnily dramatic, which I felt conflicted in the moment, because there were points where me and my friends were, like, laughing out loud in the theater, and we're like, should we be? But, and yeah, I don't know. I don't really like to think about, like, what I'm meant to feel when I watch a movie, so I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And whether I was supposed to be laughing or not, I love to laugh, so that was great. And yeah, it was shot beautifully. I really liked it. I also felt like there were some, like, experimental shots that I don't know how I feel about. I don't know if they were, like, meant to mimic, like, specific, like, comic book, like, squares. There's, like, a scene where he's, like, flying with his, like,
I knew that's the one you were gonna...
You're, like, seeing the view of, like, his face from, like...
It's like a GoPro.
It's so hilarious.
Yeah.
And also there's just, like, a lot of scenes of, like, looking in, like, the rearview mirror of cars and, like, on the side of cars driving, which, like, ultimately looks cool, but, like, I also wasn't really expecting, because I think I only watched, like, one of the trailers. I don't even think I watched all of them, so a lot of it was a surprise to me.
How dare you.
But yeah, I loved the performances. I loved... the villains. I think that the Penguin is hilarious in this. I mean, he's not supposed to be, but I think just knowing that it's Colin Farrell and, like, him with his little, like, what is he, Scottish, Irish accent, and, like, now being this, like, mob boss, like, hey, how you doing? That inherently made me laugh, and I, like, loved his portrayal of it. It was, like, every scene with him felt, like, Godfather-esque, which I really liked, because there was, like, this was very, like, mob heavy as well, which I found really fun. But yeah, no, I really liked it. Yeah, I definitely think I just had a different thing in mind, but I enjoyed what it ended up being, and I had a lot of fun with it.
Good. Dan?
All right. Well, I don't want to speak too soon, because I did just see this last night, and I hate to do this thing of, like, oh, I just saw this movie, so now it's, like, the best movie I've ever seen, just because it's so fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
But truly, I think this might be my favorite Batman movie. I know it's up for debate whether it's, like, I mean, there is no objectiveness in film, but, like, whether it's generally going to be seen as, like, did it top The Dark Knight?
Yeah.
But this is a different thing. It's very different. It's more artistic, I think. It's shot a lot better. I really like the cinematography in this movie. Robert Pattinson nails the character, in my opinion. He is great. I mean, everyone's great in this movie, but, like, most importantly, Batman in his movie is great in this. I had such a good time. The only problem I have with it will be mentioned during spoilers.
Yes.
But it's literally, like, the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, Dan and I were both
I was really excited to talk to you about that.
Yes. We'll can't talk about it right now.
Yeah.
But we will. Other than that, like, I don't think I really even have any real criticisms with the movie. I very much enjoyed it. I can't wait to see it again.
Yeah.
And if I had to pick a Batman movie to rewatch right now, it would be this movie, even though I just saw it.
And it's 3 hours, so that's saying
and
something.
It's 3 hours, yeah.
I obviously went into this, I think, probably with the most expectations, not just out of being, like, a movie fan and a comic book movie fan, but a Batman nut. So I went into this with obviously insane expectations, and I think they were all met. I had a fantastic time with this movie. I think this is the most comic accurate Batman movie, asterisk, depending on which Batman comics you like. Like, there are some Batman comics that this movie takes, and it's just like, we are doing that. And they do it. And I like those Batman comics, and those are generally considered to be very good Batman comics. And so, like, it nails that. But there's lots of different interpretations of the character. And we talked about this, the idea that Batman has very much, more so than almost any other superhero, become James Bond. Like,
yeah,
there is such a wide range of Batman content. There is, like, 20 years of Batman history that is just silly. It's just the Adam West show. And, like, in comics, it's that level of campy and silly. And so it's, like, it's incredibly hard, as opposed to almost any other superhero, to say, like, you did this quote-unquote right. Or, like, this is the most comic accurate one. It's like, this is insanely comic accurate for a certain select group of Batman comics. As someone who loves those comics, yeah, I thought this was fantastic and I had a great time with it. I definitely understand why this movie has already become a little bit divisive and why some people are sort of like not into it. But I had a really great time, and I think like the best compliment I can give it, with such a big legacy behind it of, forget the Dark Knight trilogy, but like people forget, like we look back and laugh at sort of Batman 89 because it is silly, like in a modern standard, but that movie was fucking massive. Like that movie like took the world by storm when it came out. So like forget our generation's history with the Dark Knight trilogy, then there's like our parents' generation's history with Keaton, and then their parents' history with Adam West. So like Batman as a character has like such an insane history in film and television, and so the fact that once again like another movie comes out and I think it lives up to that. And what I would say my biggest takeaway was everything in this movie I think is great, and there's some stuff that's my favorite version of that stuff that we've seen, and then there's some stuff that isn't my favorite but is still great. So like I think the detective work in this is the best detective work we've ever seen Batman do. I think the Penguin and Catwoman, look, I have so much nostalgia, obviously, for DeVito and Pfeiffer, and they both are acting their asses off in that movie. They are really fucking trying. But this is the best Penguin and Catwoman, hands down.
Yeah.
What about the
I
Batman
forgot to
66
mention,
Penguin?
Zoe
No,
Kravitz
no.
killed it.
She's incredible.
I'm obsessed.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
She's so good. Yeah.
Fantastic. You guys want to talk about cinematography? Like, everything about this movie on a technical level is so far superior to anything
Yes.
we've...
Yeah.
Like, cinematography, but not even just the color palette. Like, I know everyone's like, wow, look how beautiful the color is. Yeah, but, like, the composition of, like, shots in this movie...
And just the camera, like, movements and work and stuff.
Unbelievable. I was like, oh my god. Like, every problem I had with Dark Knight, where I would joke about, like, that scene when he's like, you got a lot of fight in you, I like that. And it's like, Batman's like, you're gonna love me. And then we just turn, and Batman is just, like, standing in the crowd. Like, it's like, this movie is the opposite of that. And it actually, even when it has moments like that, they work better. But then, and not to spoil anything, by the end of the movie, it almost becomes a plot point that moments like that stop happening, which I want to touch on. It was something that I really enjoyed by the time we got into the third act, to see Batman go from proto-Batman, just like, I'm a scary badass, to like, do more theatrical Batman things by the end of the movie. And like, one of my favorite moments of the whole fucking movie, which we'll talk about. But like, yeah, so that stuff, the sound design, like it's such a random thing to talk about, but in this movie, every time, and this isn't a spoiler, like, every time Batman walks into a room in this movie, everything goes silent and you just hear his boots on the ground, and you just get the reaction shots of everyone like being like, oh fuck, like he's here. What a wonderful choice of, like, again, film technique. Like, Matt Reeves is just so tuned in to what this needed to be. So yeah, I had a fantastic time with this. Yeah, and there is also stuff that I don't think is the best I've ever seen, but I think is great. I don't think Robert Pattinson is my favorite Batman yet, but like, I think he is great in this as this version of Batman, and I think he has the potential to become my favorite Batman, as you alluded to, Carol. Like, he grows out a little bit of being young emo Batman to more confident adult Batman, which I think is very much where we're going with the character. I love that, and I just have to say something, because something that really pissed me off after watching this movie and seeing all the reviews was how much just people talked about this movie not being funny, and I was like, oh no, you just didn't get it. Like,
Yeah.
That was a criticism?
yes, people were like, this movie is so boring and humorless, and I'm like, guys, like, the humor
Really?
is the ridiculousness of the situation.
Yeah.
Like, one of the first shots of this movie is someone turns around and Batman is just standing there, and they just kind of walk into Batman and they're like, what the fuck? And they just like walk
Yeah.
around him. Hysterical. Everything with Robert Pattinson being emo is funny. And like, to
Yes.
your point, Carol, I think it's funny on purpose. Like, I think you're supposed to be like, dude, like,
Grow up.
grow up.
Yeah.
Like, that is literally, yeah, we talk so much about this, but like,
Also, all the stuff with the Penguin.
funny on
Hilarious.
purpose, I would
Yes.
say.
Yeah.
Like, the
Oh,
Penguin
absolutely.
is a ridiculous character. Like, oh my god.
And there's a
like,
lot of levity with James Gordon as well.
a ton. Okay, so that's another one as well that I think he's great in this. I think I still prefer Gary Oldman, but I think, again, there's room to go where he may end
Sure,
up
yeah,
being my
yeah.
favorite. But yeah, so that's sort of my point in all this, is just like, everything in this is great, and there is also stuff that is the best. So, I don't know, I had a great time with this. But to segue that now into, I think, sort of the next section here, which is recommendations, I can't, like, wholeheartedly just recommend this to anyone, and be like, if you like movies, you'll like this, or if you like superhero movies, you'll like this. I don't think that's the case at all. This is a very particular type of movie, which is a incredible, like, slow burn, methodical type of movie. And I think it really does that well, because all three of us at various points on the show have talked about, like, a movie feeling too long. Like, we talked about Dune and how, like, that kind of felt too long. Carol, you've brought up, like, getting so fucking bored in movies. So the fact that all three of us are sitting here being like, yeah, it was long, but, like, it was enjoyable, I think is good. But if you just, like, absolutely hate slow burns, I don't know if this is for you. And also, if you're not a fan of Zero Year and Earth One and Long Halloween Batman, if that's not your Batman, if your Batman is he's hanging out with the Bat family and going on silly adventures and teaming up with the Justice League, which is fine, I totally get there are great comics that do that. That's not this yet. It could be that, which I'm sure we'll touch on in a few movies.
You think it's eventually going to get to, like, the Justice League?
I don't know, not the Justice League, but the Bat family. I think we're going to get some version of the Bat family, or, like, at least, like, Robin. We are going to get Robin, which we'll talk about. But, like, if that's what you want out of Batman, that's not this. If what you want out of Batman is the Nolan movies, that's not this. This is, like, something totally different. And so you just keep that in mind in terms of recommendations. If any of what I've said sounds like, oh, yeah, I like those stories, or I like that type of movie, yeah. But, like, if not, I don't know. I don't know if I could recommend this otherwise. I don't know about you guys.
I will say that, like, even the people I watched it with, it was kind of 50-50 split between people being like, oh, this was so long, like, too long.
Yeah.
And the other half being like, it did not feel like 3 hours. And I feel like I'm more in that camp, where because I was engaged the whole time, like, not that it didn't feel like 3 hours, like, it definitely was. My bladder always lets me know. But
yeah.
The story was at such a pace that at least, like, I felt engaged the whole time. So I wasn't like, I hate that this is 3 hours. I didn't feel the runtime. So that was good. But yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, even, like, people have asked me since, like, should I go see it? And I'm like, I don't know, because I think even I going into it was expecting something more Dark Knight Trilogy-esque in terms of, like, mood. So then when you go into that movie with that idea, and then, yeah, I'm kind of, like, laughing at goth emo Batman. If you're, like, not going to be okay with that, like, maybe don't see it. But I think that's fun if you can just embrace the fun of that. Yeah, so just, like, if you keep all of that in mind and you're, like, curious, go see it. But if you think that'll bore you, like a Batman detective mystery that involves, like, some gangsters, and this is coming from, like, a completely, like, never touched a Batman comic in my life and just have, like, watched the Dark Knight trilogy and, like, as a kid watched the older ones. So yeah, so if you're into that kind of stuff, check it out. And also, if you think Zoe Kravitz is hot, check it out. Worth it for that alone, I think, to be honest.
First of all, on the pacing note, so Carolina, you said roughly half of you said it was paced well, the other half said not really.
Yeah.
We went with, like, 5 people.
Yeah.
And it was pretty much the same. Like, a couple of us were like, it could have been paced a little bit better, and I think the rest of us were like, it's fine.
Yeah.
I was in the camp of, I didn't think it was too long. Like, it didn't feel long to me. It didn't feel like 3 hours. It felt long just because it was a slow burn, so it was supposed to be.
Yes.
And I was like, I was ready for that, and I wanted that, so I was perfectly happy with that. It didn't feel over long for me. But that being said, I will reiterate, if you're not into slow burns, because it's a very different story structure, you probably won't particularly enjoy this movie. This movie is kind of like, in the best way, it's like Zodiac with Batman.
Yeah.
I think I read that in a review, so I
that also
can't really
was
take full credit for that.
Partially an influence for the Riddler.
I'm sure it was. I mean, obviously Riddler was, like, supposed to be the Zodiac.
Yeah. All those
straight up.
Whatever.
Yeah, he's
we
just
talked
a
about
Zodiac
that in our
killer.
prediction video.
Yeah.
I still think, like, I can't not recommend this movie overall. I just had too much fun with it.
Yeah.
I also really like even just how, like, the world of Gotham City looked in this one, and, like, the settings they took us to. Like, a lot of that was new, at least for me. Like, I hadn't really, like, seen those locations and stuff, and I found that all really fun and entertaining.
Yes.
It's a very immersive Gotham City.
Yeah.
Very. I mean, it's everything I'd always bitched about.
Yeah.
About the Nolan movies, about, like, oh, so it's Chicago. So we're just in Chicago. It's like, this is not just Chicago. This is weird.
Well,
like,
looks
like, the
dated.
scale of everything, I was like, where did they build this set?
Yeah.
Like, where did they do that?
I have a fun fact about at least some of that stuff that we can talk about after. But
yeah, it's very impressive.
It is very impressive. I love, oh my god, like the Wayne Tower architecture. We talked about this. But, like, I love that. It is so fucking gothic and weird.
Yeah.
And it's like Art Deco almost.
Yes, and I was like, fuck yeah. Like, someone gets it. Someone has, like, read a Batman comic and watched the animated series and, like, understands that. Like, that was fantastic. Totally agree. Yeah, just to quickly touch on the pacing, like, I'm in an interesting spot, which is, I definitely did feel the 3 hours, but I was like, I felt it in a happy way. Like,
you wanted to be
like there's a point in
but it
the
lasts
movie
forever.
Exactly.
Like I didn't want it to end.
Yes, there's a point in this where we kind of like stop seeing the Riddler for about a half hour and deal with something else, another character, which we'll talk about in spoilers.
Yeah.
There's like a whole subplot involving Catwoman and another character, and we kind of detour from the Riddler to deal with that, and then that ends up tying into the Riddler. But during that like subplot, I was kind of like, man, this movie's long, but I was also like, nice. Like, there's still so much of this movie left to watch. Like, it was the opposite of your reaction to Hobbs and Shaw. Remember when I turned to you and I was like, there's an hour left, and you were like, what the fuck? It was the opposite of that. I was like, oh, there's probably like like I checked my watch and I was like, oh, there's an hour left-ish, and I was like, nice, dude, like, nice. We're getting so much more Batman in this movie.
I was also like, in my mind, I was calculating how long I thought we were sitting there.
Yeah.
I was like, I hope there's still at least like an hour left.
Me too.
I'm having too much fun with this movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, just a quick note on like the architecture of Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the one thing I did like about the Keaton movies, I genuinely liked, is how Gotham looked.
Yeah.
And like the impossibly large architecture of like the giant statues and just like buildings. You're like, how did they ever construct this in the world of the movie? 100%. And this reminded me a lot of that. Just the scale of the city.
Yes, it's what we've always said. It did what the Arkham games did, which is it takes that and it's just like, okay, but not a matte painting. Like, it's not just, it's like real. Like, how would you really construct something like that and make it look lived in? And yeah, I mean, it does it the best of any. This is my like favorite Gotham that we've seen. Like, the beginning of this movie, we spend a little bit of time in the streets of Gotham, and we'll talk about that intro. It's like maybe my favorite. I mean, there's so many favorite parts of this movie. The first 10 minutes of this movie, I was like, this is the best Batman movie I've ever seen. I was like, I don't even know. I could not contain myself. But like,
oh, it's so good.
That first beginning, we get a lot of just the streets of Gotham, and I was like, yeah, they did it. Like, you have done it. You have constructed a perfect Gotham City. Respect. Like, I'm so happy for that. Before we actually, you know what? We probably can do the Nolan stuff now. If we want to talk about sort of comparisons to the Nolan trilogy, I've put a lot of thought into this today. Since the 24 hours since I've seen the movie, I've basically been thinking nonstop about this. And here's the conclusion I came to, and I'll explain how I came to that conclusion. Okay, this for me is in the exact same tier as Dark Knight and Batman Begins. This is still a very close third to those two movies for me.
Okay.
As much as I think this is a better... First of all, I think this is just straight up better than Rises. I think it's a better movie than Rises. I think it's a better Batman movie than Rises.
I'm really surprised.
Full stop. Rises, as we've talked about, perfectly good end to the trilogy, but not overly interested in being a Batman movie as much as it is just finishing the trilogy and having a few Batman moments, which is fine. Totally fine, totally serviceable. More than serviceable. It is a good movie. I think this is great, and so I think it's better than Rises. Here's where I'm at, though, with all of this. This is sort of what it came down to for me for how I would decide, right? Is I thought to myself, okay, in 10 years, if I have a child, and my child is like, you have a lot of Batman shit, what's this all about? Which Batman movie would I show them? And the first one I would show them would be Batman Begins. And then I would show them Dark Knight, and then I would show them this. And so I thought about that, and I was like, okay,
you would really
so
show them 2 of the 3 of a trilogy, and then take them out of it?
They would say, what happens after? And I'd say, this is the end. He rides off into the night to save Gotham, and we don't need to know anything
lie to your kid like
that. Fuck them. They're fake. They don't exist yet. So, basically...
I'm going to remember and play that clip at, like, your child's, birth.
Pull the kid out of thin air, and then you're like, fuck him.
Yeah, fuck him. He's dead. He's not real.
First
No, I mean,
birthday.
look, really what I would do, yes, is show them the Dark Knight trilogy and then show them this. But, like, metaphorically, what I'm saying is I would want them to see Begins and Dark Knight before seeing this.
That's fair.
And so I kind of thought about, all right, so why was that my reaction then? Like, if I know this movie is such a good Batman movie, it is the most comic accurate Batman movie we've ever got. The cinematography is better. I think the action's better. I think so much about this is better. Why was that still my reaction? And what I came down to was the idea that this is a very good comic accurate Batman movie about certain Batman comics, and the Dark Knight trilogy is a very good movie about the character of Batman. And what I mean by that is, this feels like you're reading issues, I don't know, 60 to 65 of Detective Comics. It's just like, oh, here's a new story arc that we're following. And it just, we pick it up. Batman, he's got a mystery. He solves the mystery. There was some stuff before. There's some stuff after. Maybe I'll continue reading. Maybe I won't. Which is what I've always wanted from a Batman movie. It's just like, let's just get into like just a Batman adventure. Like that is fantastic. But I think the magic of those first two Nolan movies is their ability to say, let's take 80 years of Batman history and distill it down into this is what Batman is and what Batman means. And like, it is not super comic accurate other than the fact that it encompasses everything like emotionally about the character of Batman. And this isn't that. This is a cool Batman story. But if someone was like, what do I need to know about Batman? I still think the Nolan movies do the best job of being like, this is the origin, this is Bruce Wayne, this is sort of like in a way, it's almost like this movie only exists because those movies are so culturally important that we all kind of understand Batman. And so in this movie, it's actually way less about Bruce having an arc. Like, he has a mini arc, but it's really more like he's Batman and he's solving a case, and along solving the case, he has a realization about himself and he's going to change and grow a little bit. Which is, again, fantastic. Like, that is what reading Batman comics feels like. This feels like reading a Batman comic. The Nolan movies feel like reading any Batman comic, if that makes sense. Like, it is...
That does make sense.
This is Batman. This is what he's about. So for me, just based on that, I still think those two are more special. But, like, this is still fantastic and should be in the conversation and held as highly as those ones are held. I don't know. Whatever. This is up there. This is up there with them for me. And again, when Batman Begins first came out, everyone was like, yeah, it was fine. And then, like, a decade later, we're all like, oh, this is one of the best movies of all time. So, like, it is 100% possible that I could listen back to this in 5 years and be like, nah, I'm fucking stupid. This is 100% the best one. Like, I reserve the right to change my opinion, but, like...
No.
As of... yeah.
Also,
as of
I think if we listen back to a lot of our episodes, we might be like, oh, we're fucking stupid.
Yeah, fair enough. As of where I'm at right now, yeah, this is like reading a specific Batman comic. The Nolan movies are like reading any Batman comic. And I just think the ability to do that and pull that off and to still have stuff like, I still think Christian Bale is, as of right now, the best Bruce Wayne in Batman. I still think, as of right now, Gary Oldman is the best Gordon in relation to Batman. I still like elements of that more than I like some elements of this. But like, that is all sort of 50-50 toss-up. Like, there's some stuff here, some stuff there. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at right now in terms of my thoughts on that. How about you guys?
I think not thinking about educating my children about Batman at all. If I just had to rank them in terms of which one I enjoyed the most, I was thinking while you talked that this might be my second favorite after The Dark Knight, because I'm just thinking about the story and the villains and that kind of arc. And as like not a Batman nut, we discussed this obviously in our Dark Knight trilogy, a 1,000,000-hour long episode, that Batman Begins was fine, but I don't really care about the origin that much, and like it isn't that like captivating to me. Like, yeah, it's still a great movie and I have a great time watching it, but I need like more of like a story or a mystery to like want to watch it. So I think it would have to be, for me, The Dark Knight, and then this, and then Batman Begins, and then, you know, that last one.
That last one.
I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, that piece of shit.
We're so hard on Rises.
It's fine.
No,
It's a good movie.
Anne Hathaway's
It
great.
is. No, it's good.
It's a good movie. Yeah, so I've kind of already said it, but it's very hard to just directly compare this to the Dark Knight trilogy. Yeah. But it, like, because I have to.
We're forcing you.
We're holding you at gunpoint. Yeah, you absolutely have to do this.
I've already said I think I would call this my favorite one. Again, it is early. I just saw it less than 24 hours ago, but just the experience that I had in the theater, I was so pleasantly surprised, and it's definitely my favorite. Robert Pattinson is now my favorite interpretation of Batman, personally. I think that's a big reason why I would probably place this one at number one. Not to shit on The Dark Knight and Batman.
No,
Begins,
I mean, of course, yeah.
But I just love how much I prefer Matt Reeves' direction.
I would agree with that, yeah.
And the performances are just so spot on. The world of Gotham is perfectly immersive for what it needs to be. It's also shot, like, you talked a little bit about the coloring of this movie. There are beautiful shots, but there's also, I think, purposely not, like,
yes,
it makes Gotham look like a hellhole that it is. So very appropriate lighting, cinematography for the material.
Well, and a lot of the beauty doesn't even come until sort of right at the end, which symbolically with what's happened in the movie at that point makes sense. Like, a lot of the traditionally beautiful cinematography happens after a certain character moment, which I guess makes sense for what's going on in the movie when you think about the way those things were shot before. So yeah, you're totally right about that.
And even we haven't talked a whole lot about it, but even just from the story perspective, like, this is just as complex and just as engaging, in my opinion, if not more, than what Christopher Nolan gave us.
Yes.
The mystery is very intriguing. Again, we've mentioned if you're not into slow burns and mysteries, you might not agree, but all of us here found the mystery very, very interesting and enjoyable. So yeah, with all of that said, I would put it above the rest. Like, for me, this is the gold standard right now. Yeah, that's just my opinion, though.
Yeah. No, it's fair enough. What I keep going back to, and to your point, Carol, you were saying, like, coming to this more from the perspective of, like, just for an interesting story with, like, a cool villain and a mystery plot. Like, obviously a big factor in this for me is how much I think the other movies, the Nolan movies, do with, like, really nailing the Bruce Wayne, Batman, and then real person dynamic of, like, those three characters. Yeah. And this movie doesn't do that, but, and this is why I said Robert Pattinson's not my favorite yet, is because they're not interested in doing that yet. Like, at this point in this Batman's history, he's not doing that thing. Like, he's still sort of single-minded, and as he grows... I was
going to ask you about that.
Yes.
How you felt about that. Okay.
We'll get into it in spoilers, but, like, I think that's going to change, and, like, I think Robert Pattinson will probably end up being my favorite Batman, but just based on the content of this movie, I still think Christian Bale is the only one to nail that thing of, like, I'm fake and phony Bruce Wayne, oh, I'm super badass Batman, and then, oh, I'm just the real me that's, like, kind of depressed and hangs out with Alfred. Like, that is so, like, again, what I'm going back to of, like, reading any Batman comic. Not just a specific one, but, like, if you picked up any Batman comic, like, that dynamic is there. And that's part of that for me. And then also, like, I kept thinking about, like, I thought about the scenes in this movie that made me really happy, and we're about to get to that. And, like, there's so many of them. There's so many where I was just grinning, and I was like, fuck yeah. But then I thought about, like, the training montage from Batman Begins with, like, you can fight 6 men, we'll teach you how to engage 600, and just that whole training. And then the end of Batman Begins, especially with how, no spoilers, this movie ends. And I thought about the way this movie ends compared to the way Batman Begins ended, and I was like, oh fuck. I was like, you guys really fucked up by making me make that comparison in my head, because the way Batman Begins ends is literally, like, maybe my favorite movie ending of all time, of the conversation that him and Gordon have and him jumping off the roof.
Oh, that last scene, you mean?
Oh, dude, like, that, the ending of Dark Knight, like, when I think about all these moments, which I know half of them I just said are the endings, but then also, like, the SWAT scene in Dark Knight of Gordon being on edge and the SWAT team coming after Batman while he's trying to also take out the clowns, and, like, there are just so many of those moments in the Nolan trilogy that for me are such peak Christopher Nolan of, like, him in his prime just absolutely killing it, of, like, bringing Inception level cleverness to Batman. And yeah, it honestly doesn't necessarily, like, have the same level, I think, of, like we've talked about, cinematography, fight choreography. Like, I think this movie does that stuff better. But there's something about the energy of it that just gets me. Like, I still get chills when I think about action scenes from those movies, or when I think about Commissioner Gordon handing Batman the Joker card, and Batman, like, I never said thank you, you'll never have to. Like, when I think about that stuff, I'm still like, it still gets me hype in a way of, like, this movie didn't quite get me to. But I know, based on what I've seen, that I think by the time we get to movies 2 and 3, it will get there. Like, I have no doubt that if Matt Reeves gets to make this trilogy and gets to make this with the same creative freedom that he got to make this first one with, like, I think this will go down as the best Batman trilogy. But just, like, putting this one movie up to those 2 movies, and it's sort of not a fair comparison because a lot of Begins is informed by how cool Dark Knight is, like, in retrospect.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, that's sort of where my head is at. But at the same time, like, I do fully agree that this is the most comic accurate take of Batman. I think this is a technically better movie, like, all the technical aspects of it. Christopher Nolan is a little bit bland in terms of his direction. Like, Matt Reeves, I think, nails that. All the technical aspects are nailed. So much of this is nailed. So, yeah, I can't... I have absolutely no ill will to the idea that, like, this is better than those movies. Like, it very well could be, and, like, I can see how it would come across that way. What I don't understand, and let's just touch on this before we get to non-spoiler, is people that are saying this is a rotten movie on Rotten Tomatoes. Like,
really?
Less than, like, yes, that this is a bad movie. Like...
Yeah, I don't get it.
I don't...
I mean, you can have your opinion, but it's just...
But it seems wrong.
Very drastic.
You can
It
have your
seems very
opinion, but that
drastic,
opinion
like-
seems incorrect.
Well, and here's what I meant, like, this movie being divisive. Like, I've listened to now, after having seen it, a lot of, like, spoiler conversations from nerds on the internet that I pay attention to. And to be honest, a lot of them are kind of like, yeah, like, it was good, but I had problems with it, and it's sort of still under the Dark Knight trilogy for me. And, like, I can understand that, because, like I said, this is a very specific movie, and I get that it's not going to be for anyone, but the idea that somehow this is, like, worse than the Zack Snyder movies, like, this is a rotten movie on Rotten Tomatoes, like, not that it's not certified rotten, like, it has an 85%,
Yeah.
but the fact that there are people that are saying, like, this is bad, like, come on, dude. Like, you cannot... Like, Ben Shapiro, which, by the way, after seeing the movie, I know why Ben Shapiro doesn't like it, but Ben Shapiro saying this is a bad Batman movie, dude, what are you talking about? This is not
It's Ben Shapiro.
But, like, I just...
Is anyone
like,
looking to him for movie reviews?
I don't know, but I do appreciate film Twitter just dunking on him all day today, being like, what do you... Like, shut up. Like, why are you talking about this even? But, yeah, I don't... It is in that upper echelon, I think, just sort of as, like, final non-spoiler summary. It is in the same league as the Nolan movies, if not better. But, like, those are all sort of their own tier of Batman content, I feel like.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
And, you know, I don't... Anyone that's saying otherwise, I think maybe has a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, or maybe just doesn't really like this style of movie. Which is fine, but, like, that doesn't make it bad, you know? So, I don't know.
But also, one more thing before we jump into spoilers, like, back to the pacing. So we've mentioned already, like, a bunch of times, if you don't like slow movies, you probably won't like this. But we should note, like, The Dark Knight, for example, doesn't have the best pacing either. But that was a very widely accepted Batman movie, for the most part.
Dark Knight Rises is only, like, 5 minutes shorter than this.
Did I say Rises? I meant Dark Knight.
No, you said Dark Knight, but I'm just adding on, too.
Okay.
Like, Dark Knight Rises was also only, like, 5 minutes shorter than this, and nobody said
Is it
anything
that
about
long?
it.
I
Yeah,
felt
it's like 240.
that.
It is, like, it's like 240, but I think it's just because it's an action movie primarily,
Yeah.
and we're going from action set piece to action set piece. Nobody fucking says anything, and because it's Christopher Nolan and he just made The Dark Knight, nobody fucking says anything. But yeah,
well, even when we did our Dark Knight episode, I remember saying, especially in the last viewing, I definitely felt the runtime of Dark Knight.
yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed the runtime, but I felt the runtime as well. I do think, personally, this one handled the runtime better, if anything.
I don't.
But I know a lot of people think differently.
Like, I don't know how you could make a Batman movie and not feel the runtime to a certain degree. Like, I almost feel like if you are making a Batman movie and you don't feel the runtime, you've done something wrong because you've just made an action movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and
like,
we should also say, don't go into this expecting like a Marvel-esque movie.
Yeah.
no, not at
This
all.
is
yeah.
like a completely different thing.
But also, to that, people like going with people saying this movie isn't funny. This movie is hysterical. It's just not. It doesn't have Marvel quips. That's all.
Yeah.
That doesn't make it not funny.
They're not like
it
telling
is funny.
knock knock jokes.
Exactly. Nobody's saying what are those. Like this is and like Tom Holland isn't referencing aliens. Like that's not. But it's funny. Like there is funny, but it's situational humor.
It's contextual humor. Yeah.
Yes, it's contextual humor. Like you need to think about. You need to like process it and like understand the joke. Like you're not. No, someone's not saying a line and looking to the camera waiting for you to laugh. Like, it's not that kind of movie. And also, with the action, it's not as action-packed, but I think when the moments when we do get action is, like, I think it's the best really Batman action we've ever had. It's incredible.
Well, especially because, like, even I have mentioned before, I don't really care about, like, action, like, fighting sequences. So I appreciated that there weren't too many, and I also did recognize that the ones that were featured were sick.
They were
cool.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
As a Batman movie should be, which is also why I even think Begins doesn't necessarily have a breakneck pace. Like, the first half of that movie, he's not even Batman.
Yeah.
The first half of that movie is just Bruce Wayne being like, I'm sad. How do I not be sad? But, like, again, if you're telling a Batman story, you probably shouldn't have a breakneck pace. Like, I just think the material lends itself to a more slower explanation. So, I think people are being a little unfair when they talk about how long this movie is, to be totally honest.
Yeah, I do think slower pace is better for a Batman movie.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Should we go into spoilers?
All right. Full spoilers.
Where do we begin?
How should we start?
Yeah.
Should we talk about first, like, what we... we need to acknowledge something in our predictions video. So we predicted...
Oh, yeah.
I told you about this.
Yeah, go for it.
We predicted that the bat symbol would be made out of a gun. And we just need to put it out there. We are well aware that was... Even going into the movie, that was wrong.
Yes.
It was revealed shortly before the movie came out that it's like a utility knife, which is basically like his batarang in this, which is awesome. So, yeah. We fucked up there.
Yeah, we fucked up. Sorry about that. Also, at the end of this spoiler talk, I made a list of all our predictions, and we're going to go through and rank and see our percentage of how well we did. So, can we just start right at the beginning? Because...
Oh, yeah, we need to talk about this, like, montage at the beginning.
Well, actually, so before that, there's sort of like a pre-sequence with the Riddler. With the mayor.
Yeah, that's because you said the beginning, and that's what I was imagining. It was like scary, low key. Like it was like horror movie-esque. I was like, fuck. I loved it too, but like at the beginning, I was confused because like you just saw them like looking through like binoculars, and I'm like, is this Batman watching? And then right?
Yeah. Okay. So
it plays with that.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing. This movie has a lot of scenes that felt very reminiscent to other scenes in Batman movies, but like in its own way. And when this movie starts, and it's a very rich family with their son hanging out on Halloween, it reminded me so much of how Batman '89 starts with a family in Gotham that goes down an alley. And they get mugged, and you think, oh, this is the Waynes, but nope, it turns out this is just another family, and Batman stops the mugger.
Yeah, it took a second for me to be like, oh no, this is the mayor.
Exactly.
So I lied. That is the other thing that I genuinely like about Batman.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the only other thing.
Yeah, I mean, that intro is like...
It's cool.
Incredible. And the fact that that's basically how this movie starts is you're kind of like, oh, is that the Waynes? And then, with context clues, you're like, oh, no, this is modern day, this is the mayor, whatever. And then he gets
dies.
But then there's another layer to it because you're like, oh yeah, this isn't the Waynes, this is someone else. But we still don't know who's watching through the binoculars. Is it Batman?
Is it Batman?
The Riddler? Like, is it someone else?
And then what I love is that later in the movie, there's a scene where Batman is watching with binoculars, and they use the same visual style because the whole theme of this movie, which let's not bury the lead here, is basically that Batman has inspired a group of basically terrorists to do terrorist things, and like he has to learn that like going around and punching people is not as important as being like a proactive symbol of goodness, which like is
so good.
Fantastic theming for the movie, which I love.
Fantastic,
love.
But I did like hate the look into like the dark web that we got with like skipping to like mostly the end with like the live streaming of the videos and the chat of all the other like people, like what guns do we get?
You hated that?
No, like not as part of the movie. I just hated seeing that side of the world in real life because I like to pretend it doesn't happen even though I know it is happening all the time. I've been listening to like a lot of podcasts about like incels and shit, and it's just like a
Yeah.
part of the internet I like to pretend does not exist. And so like seeing it in this movie, I hated it, but like I get it. I didn't actually hate it as part of the movie. I just hated
I know what you mean.
having
Yeah,
to
it was
acknowledge
it was
that it's
uncomfortable.
real. Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I thought, a really wonderful choice.
Yeah.
That, like, the Riddler is just live streaming all this shit.
Yeah.
And
at the end, there's like, it's like Riddler goons.
Yeah.
But like in a much more serious context.
that's what I love, too, is it does the comic thing of, like, he has Riddler-themed goons, but it's, like, it's
They're followers
explained.
of the
Yeah,
Riddler,
they're, like, these weird followers, and, like, oh, my God. And also, you want to talk about humor, like, I don't think I got a harder laugh than when, like, the Riddler sits, like, they're watching his final video, right? Batman cracks the code, and they open up his final video, and every time the Riddler does a video, he has, like, a voice modulator, but because this one is just to his fans, he doesn't use it, so he literally goes, hey guys, I just want to say thanks to my 500 subscribers, and I, like, audibly laughed out loud to the point where Dan looked at me and was like, oh my God, like,
Hey, what's up, guys? In this episode, we're gonna be
dude, it was like,
I mean, maybe he has a podcast.
it
Oh
was
my
like
God.
my favorite joke in the movie, I think, was just that. I was like, oh my God, that is so real. Like, it is horrifyingly real.
But while we're talking about this, we were worried a little bit in our prediction video that the Riddler would be too Zodiac-esque, like too edgy and creepy.
Yeah.
Which for like the first 2/3 of the movie, it looks that way, and he does act that way. But then in like the last act of the movie, we see him without his mask on, and like for the rest of the movie, we spend time with him just without the voice modulator, without the mask, just him. And he looks goofy. Like, he has a stupid haircut.
Yeah, he's just
and
an idiot.
The glasses,
Yeah.
and he's like much more like comic Riddler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much like that twist that we got to spend time with that version of him.
Me too. I thought that was really cool. Yeah, and I just think it again adds to the humor of like at the beginning of the movie, it's like a horror movie. Like, you hear him breathing. You hear, like,
you just see him
like,
in the
it's, like,
background,
horrifying.
and the mayor isn't acknowledging him.
But then it turns out he's just a weirdo with like a dumb haircut who's like making coffee art of question marks.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, it's interesting because it's like you didn't really see him except for when he like stole a person with like an intent to kill them. But like in between, you like don't really see him. So I almost like was forgetting about him, and I was more so just like, let's solve this mystery. And then it was like a fucked up like live stream of like someone being eaten by like a cage of rats, and I was like, oh shit, I forgot that this guy is
he's very
out
much
here.
in the shadows.
Yeah.
Jumping back to the beginning,
Yes.
though, after that Riddler intro, which is great, and it's also for some reason a very like classic Batman movie thing now. Like, Dark Knight did it. We start with an intro with the Joker. Rises has the intro with Bane. For some reason now, if you're doing a Batman movie,
Start
the
with
first
the
scene has to
villain,
be
yeah.
with the villain.
Well,
I get it. It's a very, I think, superhero thing in general. Like,
I mean, I think a lot of people would agree that a Batman movie is, to a degree, only as good as its villains.
100%.
So
100%.
I think that's why a lot of them do that.
Yeah, and it's a cool cold open thing. Like, again,
And it also wasn't trying to be a Nolan cold open, though. It wasn't
No.
like action oriented. It was very creepy.
And like, to be fair, like, a cold open should sort of set the tone, and that's what this does.
Yeah.
Like, it sets the tone and it sets the plot in motion.
Absolutely.
So like,
And if we were to just jump into what we're about to talk about, like if the movie started with this montage, it would have, the feel would have been completely
it could have come across like cheesy.
Yeah.
If we just jumped from the like the Batman into a montage, it would have
a
been kind of like
monologued montage.
yeah.
But talking about that now.
Okay, we have to get into like one of my favorite elements of this, which is the fact that in comics, Batman comics always have a like running narration that's his inner monologue, and most of the time that narration, like the typeface on it, is like meant to look like cursive, and the implication is that Batman takes like a journal of what's going on. So the fact that we did that
Little
in
emo
this
diary.
it made me so happy. And just like, because if he was a smart detective guy, he would do that too. So like, it makes perfect sense. And I love the narration. It was so Taxi Driver-esque of like, the city is so fucked up. Like, what can I even fucking do about it, man? Like, I adored it. I adored the use of music, like, during this whole scene. I like seeing the little crimes going on in Gotham, getting our look at Gotham. And then you get to, I think, one of the coolest things. I like when the light, like the bat signal goes off, and his narration is like, it's from the trailers of when the light hits the sky, it's not just a call, it's a warning. Like, they think I'm in the shadows, but I'm not in the shadows. I am the shadows. And you get those scenes of like criminals after they're seeing the light, like looking into the darkness and just
like down
waiting.
an alley or
Like,
something.
fuck, is he there? And then they just kind of leave. And I thought that was awesome.
It's so like he doesn't even have to be.
He's
there.
not. I love that. Oh my god.
But
that
then,
was
But
so
then
cool.
they
he
do that,
is
like,
there
twice.
for a gang
and
of
then,
people.
the third
Yeah.
time, we finally like he walks out of this like alleyway. It's so cool.
And Angela and I described it as like he's like the Terminator in this movie because he just slowly walks up. Again, like we talked about sound design, all you hear is his boots from the shadows, just thump,
Very intimidating.
thump, and he just fucking walks into the room, not kills because he's Batman, but like incinerates all these guys. Like, oh my god, it's so good. But I also think like what a fantastic opening scene because it sets up the theme of the movie of after he saves everyone, the one guy he saved being like, please don't hurt me. And like he like clocks that and then leaves and moves on, and that very much like ties into the rest of his arc in this movie, which I thought was very poignant and just like if anyone had any doubts about like Arpatz's ability to be Batman, like I think this opening scene completely sets that aside with the narration in this, and then him going right to the crime scene. That's it. We're in it. We're gonna do a detective thing.
Just jump right into it.
Yeah.
And the crime scene stuff is some of my favorite.
Me too.
Stuff.
I also
in
wasn't
this
expecting it to jump straight from like him beating them up to the crime scene because I think you were just like following Gordon. Yeah, you were following Gordon, and then it was revealed that Batman was behind him, and like all of the policemen's reaction to him, which was also funny, like so funny.
I love
His like
that.
interaction with all the police officers all the time was amazing. But yeah, seeing him on the scene was funny, and also just like him like jumping to the end of the police officer scene when he's like staring at the kid on the bed because he's like, oh, that's me. I also found that like kind of like cheesy but in like a good way because like
Definitely.
you were on
It's
it for
very
so
Bruce Wayne.
long that I was like,
Yeah.
this is kind of funny.
I love that. I absolutely love that for two reasons. One, because it is that thing we talked about, I think even in the prediction video of like, it is inherently like dumb to try and tell a Batman story and not lean into the fact that there's a silly element to this. Like, it has to be dramatic. If it's not dramatic, like how do you explain someone dressed as a bat if you're not leaning into
Yes.
the drama? Like, it should be dramatic. But the other reason I love that is that it completely does away with the idea of needing to see the Wayne's death. It is like every bit of context you need of you hear one of the cops say like, man, imagine that, like losing your family, and he just looks at the kid, and that's when Something in the Way from Nirvana starts, which also I want to talk about that because I love the use of that in this movie. They use it twice, and I thought it was like, it's so wonderfully used both times, and we'll get into that later. I even pulled some of the lyrics.
This
so we could,
Batman
like,
is
talk
based
about
on
it.
Kurt Cobain loosely.
Yes, which I love.
And
I
also,
love.
sorry,
I
I
mean, in
wanted
this movie or like in general.
in this
this movie, yeah.
Okay.
But also I wanted to, when you were talking about Taxi Driver earlier, I don't know if you saw, but even on IMDb, they were saying that Matt Reeves listened to like the Taxi Driver soundtrack when writing parts of this movie.
Ooh,
So,
very fun.
good-
No, I did
good
not see that,
connection.
but yeah, that makes sense. Well, also, Batman Year One was also very heavily inspired from Taxi Driver.
Really?
And so I guess yeah.
Whoa.
So I guess
I
like
can see that.
um
I haven't seen Taxi Driver, but like I know like
Oh.
thematically.
general.
But yeah, I love this. I love him. Like we talked about, having like an underworld character, so he's not always Batman. I like that he like keeps the suit with him, but when he's just trying to get from place to place, isn't driving around in the Batmobile.
Yeah.
Because that's more of a movie thing. Like in the comics, he very rarely is driving around in the Batmobile. He's usually just like on foot or on a motorcycle, just kind of like getting from place to place and then being Batman at that place. So I thought that was cool of like, he's been out all night, sun comes up, Something in the Way is playing, and he's just being super emo and driving back. I was like, this is my shit. This is awesome.
And just jumping like the initial montage. This is a night in Batman's life.
Yes.
And then like we get the whole bat symbol thing. It's great. What does that mean to like the criminals in Gotham? But then it leads directly into the crime scene that starts the story off.
Yes.
So seamless.
It's such efficient
Love it.
storytelling.
Yeah.
Yeah. It not only it sets up, we get the inciting incident for the story, and we get everything you need to know about his origin in like the same montage, the same 5 minutes of the movie.
That's excellent montage.
Oh, it's incredible. It's so good. It's so good. And like the way that kid, outside of just thematically representing like his origin, the way that kid comes up as the movie goes
That
on.
made me think he was going to be Robin the whole time.
That's what we're
Yeah.
Okay, so this is our
Yeah.
theory. Let's just get into this now.
So I was like, we're seeing this
He's gonna
kid
be Robin.
too much.
He is going to be Robin in the next movie. There's no way he's not.
Or
like
a subsequent movie, if not
yeah,
the next movie.
yeah. If not, like eventually,
Yeah.
this kid, you got to imagine he's going to be Robin. Yeah, but even like his use in this movie, like he shows up at 3 times, at the beginning, at the middle, at the end, and I absolutely love his use and his interactions with Bruce and like what he represents for Bruce in each scene. Like I just think it's absolutely stellar because this beginning scene, obviously, but then and at the middle of the movie with the funeral, when the car comes, like.
He's the first person he jumps to go.
The effort Bruce makes to save him, and even how he's completely devoid of the conversation the mayoral candidate is having with him, and he's just focusing on this kid, and he's just like reliving his own trauma, right? And then when he sees the car coming, being like fuck, and like that's the only person he thinks to save. Like it's so good. And then obviously, not to cut to, but like at the end of the movie, that kid is the first person to actually like trust Batman and be like, okay, let's go. Like, we're fucked. Like, you need to save us. Like, it's so well done, dude. It's so well done. Oh, it's awesome.
Yes. I'd say we were like half right about the Robin thing. Like, it's not the scene we expected.
Yes.
But in the sense that there was a kid who was orphaned who
lived in the sewers or was drowned in the sewers. We'll get into it.
It
also wasn't in the sewers.
Well, but even then, I think we were in the subway when he drove to the Batcave. But
yes,
yeah, that was so cool.
Yeah,
I love that.
That also ripped right from the comics. But yeah, that like an old abandoned subway station under Wayne Tower is his Batcave. Also, though, at one point, Catwoman asks him if he lives in a cave, and I was like,
yeah,
nice. Like that was literally my reaction.
Humor.
Yeah. That is good humor. Yeah, genuinely. Like that was a fun line. Yeah, and so that's sort of the beginning of the movie. From that point, we get right into the plot.
We meet Jim Gordon very early. I want to talk about him a
Yeah.
little bit. I know he didn't have as much development as Gary Oldman in Begins, but I really liked their almost buddy cop
Me too.
personality, like Batman and Gordon in this. There were times when he almost felt like he was his Robin.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, huge age difference, but, like, in terms of, like, his role...
Yeah.
They were very much in it together.
Yes.
I was expecting him to be understanding of Batman, but still very like a lot more apprehensive than he was in this movie. But I liked how on board he was.
We tuned in at a point where it felt like, well, even he said he trusts Batman more than anyone on his team.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's
Yeah.
interesting
That's
that we're
like a big
picking
thing
up
to say.
there. Yeah, that's like a very well-developed relationship. And
So-
he like is forcing him to be led onto every crime scene, even though all of his colleagues
Yeah.
are like, what the fuck? And he's like, he's wearing gloves.
Yes.
That was also funny.
I love that. That was such a great line too. A lot of the great humor is from that.
Yeah.
Like I like after
Together,
when
yeah.
they're like
When he
like
punches
the dead guy. Oh my god, dude! When he punches him,
And then they meet
That
up later,
scene
he's
has
like,
been
you
memed to
didn't
death.
hold that punch, did you?
I love that where he's like, you could have pulled that punch, and Batman's like, I did, and I was like, again, such great Batman of like maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but like him just trying to
looks
seem like a
pretty
badass
rough.
anyway. Yeah.
Like, it's funny, but it's also it's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It is cool. It is
It's cool.
objectively cool. Yeah.
It's cool, especially if he did pull the punch. Like, that was him pulling a punch.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It's so cool. But yeah, I like that scene. That scene was so fun and clever. Gordon being like, I'm gonna handle him, and like pretending he's all upset, but being like, you have to punch me right now, and then you have to run away. Like, I thought that was
That whole
awesome.
scene when Batman's taken into the police station, it's so great. Like, just, we're already at the point where he's flat out, like, punching dirty cops.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because,
oh my
like,
God,
it's out in the open already. Like, so fun.
Well, I also loved
maybe fun's the
him
wrong word,
going
but,
to
like,
that
enjoyable.
club and seeing all the cops and being like,
Yeah.
this
And the
is
DA and
everyone.
everyone,
And then having to go to these crime scenes and see all these same people and be like, what the fuck, bro?
It's so awkward.
yeah.
But we were right about the iceberg lounge.
Hell yeah,
Yes,
we got the
yeah.
iceberg lounge.
That is one thing
I
that
knew
when
it.
it popped up,
knew
I'm
it.
like, I've heard this before.
Hell yeah, we did it.
That was cool.
Yeah, I love everything.
I
about
love
the
that
iceberg
set.
lounge.
That was a sick
is nice.
set.
It's
Even
cool.
like with Penguin's little office at the top and all the dressing
Yeah.
rooms.
Yeah.
It was also just like gorgeous, and like it allowed them to do really fun things with like the club lighting and like music.
Yeah.
it was a great place.
This also it leads to another, I think, great little Batman action moment of him. Well, again, so much of this movie like follows the traditional storytelling thing of like in threes. Like we talked about the boy having like 3 moments. This movie, there's 3 different moments where Batman goes to the iceberg lounge.
Yeah, like, it's
and
not
has
a
to
one
interact
time.
with the twins.
Yes,
By the way, was that supposed to be Tweedledee and Tweedledum?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
But real quick, So you just said we go back to the Iceberg
Yeah.
Lounge 3 times, which is great because I was expecting it to be like a one-off. Here's the Iceberg Lounge, but we returned there multiple times. I think that's very film noir-ish of like returning to the same settings because it's a mystery you're trying to solve, right? You need to go back for more evidence or like to interrogate someone.
It's also very just classic Batman of like going there, getting some information, going somewhere else, and then coming back and being like, fuck, like I actually needed something else. And, like, I was wrong about this, or, like, and we need to take Penguin in, whatever. Like, yeah, it was very classic Batman, but it does lead to the opportunity to, like the first time he just kind of walks up and the twins are like, the fuck? And he just beats the shit out of everyone. I love how he uses the grapple gun to like pull people. He does this like as he's Spider-Man, like the games, dude. He like does the quick grapple and he pulls them. Awesome. And then obviously it leads to Colin Farrell being like, whoa, like his introduction, fantastic.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting him that to be his introduction in the movie.
Yeah, great. It was all great. But then I love so then he goes back the other time just as Bruce.
Yeah.
And he's like, I need to talk to Falcone, which we'll get into that whole subplot because I think it's really cool. It's very comics. But, like, there's that. But then the coolest thing for me was, like I alluded to, but towards the end of this movie. So the third time he goes back, he doesn't just knock on the door. Like, he starts to do more of, like, the Batman thing where he knocks on the door and the twins open it and nobody's there. And he, like, sneaks in. And then he cuts all the power. So all the lights shut down. And then he's, like, full Batman in the darkness fucking up people. And again, I was like, oh yeah, he's learning. Like he's becoming more quintessential Batman in a way of, at the beginning he's like, I'll just walk in and punch you, like whatever. But he's like, no, like he's using theatricality and deception, you know? Like he's doing the thing from Batman Begins, which I really like. So I like that repetition of threes and how much that club played a big part into the plot. I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, and then we go there again with Selena.
Yes.
Which is cool.
Yes.
We should talk about the contacts, because that was like, you even made the point of like, that's the detective vision of this movie.
Yeah.
From the games.
Yeah, so
cool.
For anyone who doesn't know, I don't think we talked about it on the video, but in the Batman Arkham games, you have this thing called detective vision, where when you're trying to like detect, you can like click a button and it changes the vision on your screen, so you can see clues better. It's almost like an infrared type thing. And Dan and I were saying literally like the day before, would we get that? And I was like, maybe. And yeah, the contact lenses are sort of like that, because when he plays back, it has like a different color palette and he can kind of like see things that he saw before. So yeah, it's
well,
sort of
yeah,
like
and even in the games, when you're doing like a detective scene, you could rewind time to see how things played out and then like play it forward again, which is a lot like him rewinding what he's like his sight, basically everything he saw.
Yeah.
It's
crazy
cool.
crazy technology.
Cool.
I don't think
Yeah.
it'll ever
But
really
also-
happen, but it was cool to see.
What I like about it though is it still feels like lived in the world.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't, like sometimes you're watching like a James Bond movie and he'll get a gadget and you're like, what the fuck? Like where did this? But like nothing in this felt like it stood out to me. Like everything I was like, yeah, I buy that this Batman has a retractable grapple gun and this Batarang thing, and like all his equipment felt very like, yeah, I could see
even,
like this existing in this world.
Even the contact lenses, I've seen that in other, like this movie didn't invent that.
No, it's not pioneered in it.
Yeah.
But it's a good use of it.
Yeah.
Good use of it for sure.
I just mean to say, like, it's not I wouldn't call it a stretch.
No,
like,
exactly.
I'm sure it's been an idea, a technological concept that's been thrown around before. So
It's really just
tiny cameras that
it's just AR glasses like pushed to the next level. Like right now you can have like AR visors or whatever, and it's like it's just that,
exactly.
but like the next evolution of it, which all right, cool. Whatever, fuck it. Should we talk about some of the other like side characters? Should we talk about Alfred?
Yeah. He wasn't in the movie as much as I thought he was going to be.
And I didn't expect him to like almost die.
I straight up thought they were gonna like.
Me too.
I thought they
Same.
killed him.
I didn't know how he would have survived that, but
Yes.
okay.
Opening
The
a
only
bomb
reason-
in your face, yeah.
And like barely any marks on his face.
And also like barely threw it away from him when it went. Like
Literally.
I could have understood it if he like tossed it and we saw him starting to run away, but he's
was
just
holding it.
He's like, huh? And then it blows up, and I was like, okay.
And also, it took him
Okay,
an embarrassingly long time to realize that it could
my
be
God,
a threat,
yes.
given the fact that he knows that there's this psychopath Riddler leaving things specifically for the Batman and killing people. I'm surprised that he
Yes.
opened it at all.
Also, this Alfred, like I predicted, another one we got right, is the Earth 1 Alfred who was like a military
Yeah.
officer. Like, he has a cane because he's fucked up in the leg from his military service, just like in that comic. At one point in this, he references to Bruce like, I couldn't be a father. All I could do was like teach you how to fight.
Yeah.
Just like in that comic, he's the one that trained Bruce.
Check another one off the list.
Check another. Fuck yeah, we're gonna go through the list. 100%. We got 100%. But like, how would this military expert guy in the chair breaking ciphers for Bruce, teaching him how to fight at the start of the movie, take like 20 minutes to be like, maybe this is like dangerous? Like I that was a little bit of a stretch. Like,
well, here's why.
Okay.
And this is also what I loved about this scene.
Okay.
The use of montage in this scene of the phone ringing.
Yeah, the reveal.
Yeah, at first you're like, why isn't he picking up the phone?
Yeah.
But then it's revealed that that's not even happening at the same time. That we're hearing the phone ringing after he's...
Yeah, that was cool editing.
I was going to say after he died, but he doesn't actually die. After it's already happened.
Excellent use of editing.
And I was also going to say that's why I think they spend so much time on him with the bomb to like craft that montage and not just have it be a quick thing of like he sees it and throws it away.
Yeah, fair enough. That makes sense, actually. Yeah.
It is, I mean, you guys are right. It's still questionable of why a person with his experience would...
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things where it's like you sacrifice a little bit narratively just to like have the
for
good
the art of it.
Yeah, to have the good tension and the art of the scene.
Yeah, I also saw that. I was like, that's so cool.
Love that scene because it does the thing that like everyone always bitches about, where Batman has a bat voice that he uses in this movie, which by the way I think is great. I think it's a very good.
Not over the top.
Yeah.
It's
not
just,
over the top.
Just right.
Just a hush. But when he's driving back to Wayne Manor and he's on the phone, he is just straight up using his voice and he's like, put Alfred on the phone, put Alfred. Like, I love that. That is just like chef's kiss of Batman content, of like completely drop the facade and is just like, oh my fuck, like the only person I have left in my life is about to die. So good.
Yeah.
So good. Like it's the thing of, yeah, like Batman and Catwoman, like when they're in the bat and she's like, oh, like, do you like bring all your girls into the car? And he's like, this isn't a car. Or like when she leaves and he's like, so that's what that feels like.
But no one's there.
But nobody's there. So it's like, no, he wouldn't keep using the voice, man.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So like, it's funny, but
yeah, exactly. This
it's
one
ridiculous.
This one does a better version of that, which I really like. But I'm glad I was kind of right about the prediction with the use of Alfred in it.
Do you prefer this Alfred over Michael Caine?
No.
Developmentally?
No. I just, because again, like I think that's what this movie's least interested in, which is fine because we just saw that. Like I wouldn't want it again, but I do prefer that. Like I guess at the end of the day, what it comes down to for me is like, and even with, because you brought up like what was my take on sort of their take on Batman, like I am totally fine with this young Batman being like one track mind. Like I don't even go out in public as Bruce Wayne. Like I literally am Batman in sleep. Like that is fine with me.
But I think going forward he probably will go out as Bruce Wayne more.
Yes, like
that's part of his development, I think. Yeah,
I think this franchise is going to be about the origin of like the facade of Bruce Wayne, if that makes sense, of like him learning to be the playboy whatever guy and still like maintain the family name, and to a certain extent when you actually look at what this movie's about, I think like rehabilitate the family name, like to be in public and be like, no, you know what, like I am gonna try to be like an actual good person that wasn't like caught up in controversy. Like I think that's where this is gonna go. So that's why I'm saying like I'm excited. I think he'll end up being my favorite Batman like once we get there, but in this movie it is sort of like you're playing one of the two key facets of the character, and like I think he nails this facet of the character. Like him in the Batsuit as Batman is so good. Like not even like the big choices of the voice or the fighting, like all of that is obviously great, but just the way he'll like stand in a scene is so like animated series of just like he'll just kind of be in a crime scene, not say anything to anyone, just kind of slowly look around, watch
He's
stuff,
doing his own thing.
And you can even tell, like I think Pattinson does such a great job of with his eyes, of just like you can see him thinking, like you can see him kind of like just looking around and like looking at other, and it's just he says nothing, and then at the end of the scene he'll just be like, it's this, and they're like, oh shit, yeah, it is that. Like that stuff where I'm like, oh wow, he nailed that intentionally. They just don't do the other part of it, which is fine because that's what this movie is. I'm totally fine with them doing that for now, as long as that builds up, which I think it will. So yeah, I think it is a great performance that works, but I do still love like actually having Bruce Wayne and like his relationship with Alfred, and overall I've always preferred that more to like an estranged badass Alfred, personally.
Yeah.
I also think, I mean, if I had to pick, I like Michael Caine's better.
Yeah.
But we also just don't spend a whole lot of time with Alfred in this movie.
Yeah.
So we spend a lot more time with Alfred in the Nolan trilogy.
Yeah. Well, and I think this movie is definitely makes a conscious effort to, like, explore things we haven't seen. So it's like, we've seen the Bruce Wayne character stuff. We've seen Bruce and Alfred. We've seen that. Like, why would we just do an inferior version of that? They absolutely killed that in those movies. Like, yeah, let's explore him being Batman in the city and what that means. So, yeah, it totally is fine, and it works great for what this movie is. No problems there.
Yeah. And on the note of Bruce as a separate character from Batman, this movie's interesting because most Batman movies have done the thing of, like, Bruce needs to learn balance between the two. This movie, it's more like he needs to not just like he needs to learn separation of Bruce and Batman to begin with.
Yeah.
And like he needs to actually be Bruce Wayne some of the time and not just always Batman.
Yeah.
It's less of I need to balance the two and more I need to establish the separation.
Yes.
So that's
very
different.
much so.
It's
cool,
interesting.
but also
It is
like,
cool. It's a cool, interesting
yeah, I was
take.
gonna say, but I think it also makes sense given the fact that he is just like this sad emo boy, because like escaping fully into that character is probably better because he doesn't have to directly face his like sadness. So it like it makes sense for like the kind of Batman they're trying to portray right now, the Kurt Cobain-esque.
Right. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Which I think is a cool choice, and I already know so many people are gonna shit on it for like, oh, the sad emo Batman, and it's like, yeah, but like I just don't know what people think Batman is then. Like I guess that's what I'm confused about.
Let's put this out on the table right now because I know people are going to say it. That was a huge complaint with the Zack Snyder thing, was it was too gloomy. But those movies are glorifying the gloom. This movie, it's the complete opposite, where it's like you shouldn't be this stuck up like emo rich boy.
Yeah.
This is not who you're supposed to be. You're supposed to grow
better
out of this. Yes.
Yeah, and also like those movies aren't even. It's like the emo like makes him badass. You know what I mean? It's like look how badass he is because he's emo. Whereas this, it's like
look how funny. Like we were laughing
how
about.
He is. Yeah. Like the scene where he comes back after that opening montage and you see him without the suit. He looks awful. I'm like you need to get help. Like you don't look okay.
I have a
but,
note
like, that's
saying they made Robert Pattinson look ugly. Because like he has this horrible haircut. He's just pasty as hell. Like he is like kind of muscular, obviously, because he's like Batman. But even then, it's just like you never see like a flattering view of it. It's always just like his cut up back. Like it's never like look how ripped I am. Watch me work out. Like that never happens.
Yes. I also appreciate. Obviously, he's fit and like ripped. Yeah. But like he is one of the lesser jacked Batmans. Like he doesn't necessarily have to be like a hulking.
No,
like,
I mean he's like I think he's like less than Bale, but like that idea of just like lean, like he's just
a little bit
muscular.
lankier of a Batman.
Well, he looks like a guy who's like just fit from maybe like running around and actually beating up people because that's like great exercise. But he's not the Batman who also like has a full gym in his Batcave and is like lifting weights all night. Like that's not what he's gonna be doing.
He's not like Ben Affleck. No, giant Batman.
Yeah, agreed. I also too like a lanky detective Batman. But yeah, I you know that is the difference. You're right. It's just like those movies glorify being angry and dumb, and this is like you're smart. Like you're smarter than this. Like wake up. You know what I mean? Like you have more to offer. And like even in the notes that he's taking at the beginning in the narration, he's like, I don't know if this is even doing anything. Like or if it's just making me feel better. Maybe it's not even having an effect. Who knows? And by the end of the movie, he's like, oh no, it is having an effect. I just needed to like recontextualize and understand what that effect is.
I just need the effect to not inspire a serial killer.
Well, yeah, it's like he's like I need to like come to terms with what the actual positive effect is and like how to lean into that instead of the dumb aspect
instead of enabling people who think they have the same mindset as me, but it's actually a much more dangerous mindset. Yeah. Which is like I love how this film tackled that. Yeah. How like his connection with the Riddler in this movie is all, or I should say the Riddler's connection with Batman in this movie is he thinks they would actually make a good team. Yeah. Like he's that deluded to think that they're on the same page.
Yeah, he's literally like, "Oh, thanks for the help. Like we did this together." Batman's like
all the stuff we see in the trailer of him writing to him with the cards. Yeah, we think he's like taunting him. But then when we watch the movie, it's like
that was a fun reveal
he was actually trying to like reach out to him.
Yeah, I did like that.
That's
well, even at the very end,
it was very well handled.
I think this movie did a lot of really fun like with the the Alfred reveal, that being at a different time, even like after the Riddler goes to Arkham and he like is saying Bruce Wayne, it makes you think that he knows that Batman is Bruce Wayne, and then he's like, sucks that we didn't get him, and I'm like,
oh, that was so cool.
good.
So I had an interesting take on that. I don't know, like, I don't think it's right, but I just thought it was, like, interesting was that, like, do you guys think it's at all possible that he was saying Bruce Wayne in terms of, like, I know who you are, but then maybe, like, realizing that Batman was, like, avoiding it and, like for the sake of Batman, knowing that they were being filmed, kind of, like, switched it around after to be like, yeah, sucks
so.
we didn't get him, right? I don't think so either.
I don't think so.
But
I think it actually. I was thinking that in the theater.
Yeah.
But then when we get to this, the part where he's like freaking out because he's like, no, this isn't how it was supposed to go.
Yeah,
like,
that's right. Yeah.
It's just he feels too upset by what he's learning to think that he actually is Bruce Wayne. Like,
yeah.
I think he just thinks in his mind he's just Batman, and he was like.
But also, if he was working
with
Batman this whole time and looking up to him, why would he then want to kill Bruce Wayne if he knew that Bruce Wayne was Batman?
That's the thing that doesn't really
True,
like.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Like if that actually was the case. Yeah.
But yeah, it did throw me for a loop.
Yeah, I did think that's where they were going with it, but yeah, it doesn't.
Cool twist either way.
Cool twist, unless he figured out after he tried to kill him. Like maybe he didn't know he was Bruce Wayne and then figured it out after. But again, they didn't like provide any context clues to that. So I will like that's a leap. Like that is not even like headcanon. That is just like projecting onto the movie. That's definitely not what happened. What else did I want to touch on? Okay, can we talk about actually? I do have a few nitpicks.
Can we talk about Catwoman before we nitpick?
Oh,
we
sure.
haven't talked about her at all.
We haven't really talked about her.
Yeah,
she's fantastic. She's fantastic in this. Like I said, best Catwoman. Like
I love
by a long shot.
I love her job. I love her apartment. I hate a little bit the like, is she gay or not? Like, just let us know. You know what I mean?
Zoe Kravitz said she is.
Okay, because it's like annoying because it's like she was calling this person she was living with baby and like was really concerned and wanted to find her, but then she was referring to her as like her friend to other people, and then she like immediately is making out with Batman, and like obviously she could be bi and like that's fine, but I'm like, if you're like really worried about this like live-in girlfriend of yours, are you really this ready to move on right now? I don't know. So that was my own, that is a nitpick of mine, I guess. So we're killing two birds with one stone. But everything else I loved. I loved her outfits. I loved her wigs. I loved even the storyline about her being the daughter of Falcone.
It's Falcone.
In this movie, you know why I think they say Falcone?
Because of the Falcon?
The pun, with the Falcon.
So it actually is pronounced that way. It's the Nolan movies that said Falcone, because they're like all English actors and no one knew how to pronounce it. And so like in media since then, everyone has said Falcone, but it was originally supposed to be Falcone. But I do think they really like heavy-handedly say Falcone. So that way when you get to the Falcon thing after, it's like you put two and two together.
Could that be a rat with wings?
There was so much bird stuff in this movie.
Yeah.
There was a lot. Dude, that one riddle where they kept trying to figure out what this bird was, I was like, oh my god,
I was like, is it going to be an owl?
Yeah.
Well, especially, that was the one thing that fucked me up about listening to your episode before we got to the movie.
I'm so sorry.
They kept saying, like, bird with, like, rat with wings, and I was like, owl. The Court of Owls?
Yeah.
They talked about that so much in the episode.
Okay.
I'm like looking for clues and like waiting for it, and it like never happened.
The card at the beginning, the first Riddler card, has an owl on it. It says like whatever, who, having a clue, and there's an owl on it. Like, come on.
I mean, I definitely think there was nothing in this movie to suggest it.
But it still could
necessarily,
come.
but we're going there. Like, there's no way we're not going to go there in the future.
Yeah. So, Carol, I don't think you've seen it, but the cast of The Batman did a thing for, like, I don't know, Variety or some website, like, where they were standing in a white void reading, like,
I love when they
stand theories.
In a white void.
You know what I mean? You know one of those videos where they put them in a white void?
They answer, like, Google questions about them.
Yeah. And people were asking about the Court of Owls.
In relation to this movie.
Robert Pattinson and Paul Dano were being real sus. I gotta be honest. They were both like, oh, what a great story. And Robert Pattinson was like, it'll probably be the sequel to this. And Paul Dano was like, bro. And he was like, I don't know. I'm just guessing. And then
as if they don't know.
It has to happen. Like we said, the framework is there. You're telling me there was a giant conspiracy dating back in like and it wasn't the Court of Owls.
There was a scene with the DA, like, when he's about to blow up.
Yeah.
And he's like, Batman's interrogating him about, like, the system.
Yeah.
And he's like, it goes so much deeper than you can possibly imagine. I thought that was literally setting up, like, a Court of Owls.
Me too. And I guess that is not a disappointment, but more of like is that it was just Falcone. Like, that was it. It was just like, the mob. And I was like, all right.
That was interesting because...
That was interesting because, like, when that was revealed to be the big thing, I was like, could have got, like, I don't know. I see the state of the city and the way these people interact. I feel like that's, like, not super far-fetched. I'm, like, not that surprised by that.
Sure.
Well, I kind of was, though, because, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but in most of the, like, Falcone stuff I've seen in the past, like, in the Nolan universe, he's super powerful, but he doesn't necessarily... He's not, like... as powerful as the mayor of the city.
In charge. Yeah, it's more
in
just
this
like...
movie, he, like, might as well be mayor. They even say that in the movie.
Yeah, they refer to him, I think, as,
the
like,
real
the mayor. Like,
essentially.
They're saying that the whole, like, election doesn't matter.
Like, that's big.
Well...
The whole city is in his pocket.
Well, it's because he has access to these billions of dollars, right? That's why they were, like, painting the Waynes with such a bad brush, because they're like... Those dumb Waynes died, and then the city got corrupt, and it's their fault. And, like, I know we haven't gotten there yet, but I don't think that makes it their fault. You know? Like, it's not their fault that, like, they died, and then this money was, like, not correctly used. No. Like, that's... The Riddler definitely got that wrong. Although, like, it does suck that, like, I guess someone died, kind of on their behalf. I don't know. That is, like, a bad thing, but not as corrupt as the Riddler was painting it, for sure.
But his whole thing, too, was, like, they died, and then this fund was, like, lost, and no one cared about what happened to the orphans that were going to benefit from it.
But that's not the Wayne's fault.
Or it's not, but I think it's him just being like, no. But, I mean, but it's that thing of,
like, everyone's paying attention to Bruce... which is why he focuses so heavily on the Waynes, because like everyone flocked to like, oh, what's Bruce gonna do?
I think that's just
like,
a jealousy thing on his behalf, like a well-treated orphan versus like him kicked to the curb.
Yes,
that's the dichotomy for sure.
And it's also like his psychology is that of someone that's trying to make it seem like, I don't know, like he's trying to find an excuse to be the person that he is. You know what I mean? And it's almost like,
because he's so smart.
Yeah, well, and it's almost like he's putting it on the Waynes as like it's your fault, and it's like, no, it's nobody's fault. Like, the system failed you. I get that the system failed you.
Fault.
If it's anyone's fault, it's Falcone's fault.
And to be fair, he was after Falcone in the long run.
Yes, for sure. But yeah, it is very much that thing of like, you are the inverse of Batman, of like, you are angry and you're trying to find a way to deal with your anger, and because you saw Batman doing it, you think it's okay to do it this way, but it's not okay to do it this way. And like, just killing everyone in a position of power is not a good way to handle a corrupt system, and normally does not work out very well for anyone. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. Talking about the Waynes, I was a little not confused, but kind of like, all right, with the backpedaling that they do to be like, oh no, Thomas didn't have anyone killed. Yeah. Like, I think it would have been okay just to be like, he had that person killed. Like, I understand it's like that makes him a straight up bad guy if he does that.
Yeah, I think the only reason they didn't was just so that Bruce's father wasn't essentially a murderer. Even he didn't kill the guy himself, but if he had him killed, he might as well have been like
100%. Like, it makes him a straight up bad guy, but
he took the Hippocratic oath, Marco. He can't kill someone like that.
I mean, but he did. But he did.
He can order someone to be hurt, though.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything in the Hippocratic Oath about ordering someone to hurt someone. But I wouldn't have minded it, because I feel like so much you have the theme of this, which is something we did nail, is that Catwoman's part in all this is trying to get Bruce to see, like, not everything is simple. Mm-hmm. And, like, she even calls him out and is like, man, like, I don't know who you are, but you were definitely rich.
Yeah.
Like, just because of, like, his attitude of, like, oh, you could have made better choices or whatever. And so, like...
And she even agrees with the Riddler at one point.
Yeah.
We also predicted.
So, like... I do feel like if Thomas was straight up a bad guy, like, it still works for Bruce's arc. And if anything, I think it even like makes it stronger for him to have to be like, why am I doing this? Because that's the question he asks for Alfred, is he's like, I'm doing all of this in his name and he was a piece of shit. And like, that could have been, I think, even a little bit more elevated if they doubled down on it, as opposed to what they do, which is sort of like, no, like, I don't think he wanted to actually have him killed. And it was more just like, he was trying to do this, and then on the other side of that, like, that is a nitpick, but what I do love about that, though, is what we talked about after the movie. which is that like we don't establish who actually killed them for sure and why. It's like Falcone says it was Maroni. Alfred
it
says
was Falcone, though.
Like probably, but I love that Alfred's like, I don't know. He's like, I think, but he'll tell you one thing, I'm telling you another thing. It could have just been some random guy on the street.
Could have been some random Joe Chill with a gun.
Could have been some random Joe, and I really love that because I think it fixes the problem I have with the Amazing Spider-Man movies of like, I need to hunt down the people that are responsible for the people I love's death, and that's the only reason I'm a hero. And in this, it's like, no, like if that was it, if it was clear and cut, Bruce Falcone killed your parents, he would have arrested Falcone and then said, I'm retiring. I've done it. I've healed my trauma. I got the guy. You know what I mean? Like there wouldn't be anything left for him. So it's like,
well, do you think though? Like, do you think
100%
if he had found his parents' killer, that would have been it for him?
I think so. I think I've always. This is why I've never liked even knowing that Joe Chill is a person. This is why I've always said my favorite theory is that like Joe Chill is just what someone told him when he was young, and that it's just like, no, it's just like Joe Chill. Like it's just like Alan Smith. Like we just came up with a name. We don't know who this person is. Just some guy on the street. Because I do think like I don't know what Bruce would do, and that's why I love Begins is that he wants to kill him and then he doesn't kill him. Someone else kills him, and now Bruce is like, I don't know what to do with my life. Because I can never be responsible for bringing this guy to justice anymore. And that's what sets him on the path to like not seek personal vengeance, but like help other people instead.
I thought you were saying after finding out who killed his parents, he wouldn't be Batman anymore.
No, but I think it's more just like I just prefer the idea that it's not motivated by.
It's just motivated by saving people in general, like fixing the city in general, not just his personal.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I think like part of what he always has to learn to be a good Batman is that I can't be doing this to make myself feel better.
Yeah. Which
I think Begins and this both deal with that, but in different ways. Begins deals with it in terms of like having Joe Chill be killed, and so Bruce is like, I can never get that closure. What does that mean? Okay, it means I have to help other people so no one else feels like this. And in this movie, it is the idea of like, what am I? I'm vengeance. Oh, wait a minute, I can't be vengeance because that's like a bad thing that sends the wrong message. So like I have to be something else that's better instead. So they both do it just in different ways. And I am thankful that we do get the line from Alfred of, I think it's that, could have just been some random guy in the street. It doesn't matter. The point is like, why do we fall? Because so we can pick ourselves back up. And then he sees the bat symbol and he goes and he bites. Like that, it's just, it's that moment, but yeah.
But I do like, regardless, that just like in general, the Waynes were, or at least Thomas Wayne was not how he was portrayed as Nolan's.
And you were right about the Arkham thing.
Fuck yeah, I was,
Yeah.
Carol.
Good
Oh my
job,
god,
guys.
when that happened, I looked at Dan and I was like, God.
It took me a second to register. You know why? Because just in the process of editing, like that, Martha and Arkham was like they became linked in my mind. So I heard Martha Arkham in the movie. It didn't register at first. I was like, oh, Martha. And then you turned to me and I was like, oh, Martha Arkham.
I nailed it. Oh my god, that was so exciting for me. It really didn't have that much of an impact on the plot, but I was pumped. I was pumped when that happened nonetheless.
Well, I mean, it was the whole reason that
it motivates Thomas.
Because he didn't want the people to think that his wife was crazy.
That's also like a very extreme reaction to that, in my opinion.
but
like, it's just because he was running for mayor, he can't have a crazy wife. Come on.
Oh, dude, I 100% buy that would happen in politics. Even today in politics, I buy that if someone running for a position of power had a wife that was in and out of an insane asylum, they would kill someone to hush that story up. 100. I do not doubt even for a second.
All right.
I also like, though, that Alfred then recontextualizes it again, when he's like, no, it wasn't about him wanting to win the election. It was about him wanting to protect her from, like, the shit she would get if, like, this story got out.
Yeah.
Which, again, makes Thomas a bit more, like, not of a straight-up asshole, but, like, misguided. Which I guess is, like, cool because that's what Bruce is in this movie. Like, Bruce is misguided.
He's trying to be a better man than his father was.
Yeah.
He's trying to be the next iteration of what his father was trying to do for the city, but much better.
Yeah, so I guess that does kind of work, that Thomas is more just misguided and not straight up bad.
Because in previous movies, it's like Thomas was this, like, he was basically something to live up to for Bruce.
Dude, Thomas was a billionaire CEO
doctor
who built like housing and transportation for the poor and also worked as a doctor. Like,
I hate when they do that. It's like, these people that we know in real life are probably never good. let's just pretend that in this world, this one is heart of gold. It's never done anything wrong.
Yeah.
Like, even with the cops at one point when they were like, oh, they were arresting Falcone, and they were like, oh, like, I own all the cops. And then you go outside and there's like a crowd of cops, and it's like, not all of them. Look at this crowd of good cops.
Yeah,
and I'm
I
like,
thought that was
okay,
a little weird.
That's unnecessary.
I know that was supposed to be like a hype moment, but honestly,
in this
when
day
they
and
first
age,
walked outside,
come on.
Yeah, when they first walked outside and saw the cops, or before, he's like, I own the cops, and they walk outside and all of them were there. My first reaction was like, oh, Batman and Gordon are gonna have to fight all these cops. Like, the cops aren't gonna let. But then no, they're like, no, they're good. And I was like, I know this is not even remotely close to what the scene was.
Well,
but,
you know what would have been cooler, actually? If it was just, like, he says, I own all the cops, and they open the door, and it's just Gordon there to take him in.
Yes.
It's like, not this
Not
cop.
this cop. Ah, that would have been so much
And
better.
more realistic.
Because as it stands, and yeah, but I do love how Batman basically punches every cop in the face at any given opportunity except Gordon. Like, when he wakes up and
That's
freaks out
legitimately
and just starts
terrifying. Being in that
punching
tiny room
Yeah.
filled with cops, like, that's like a crowd. You're in this little bubble. Like, what a way to come back.
is great. And I like that they were just like shit talking. He was like, I'll fucking punch you in the face. I don't care. Like, he literally was just like, and Gordon was like, dude, bring it down. It's okay. Like, we're going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. Yeah, that scene where they walk out to see all the cops, like, this has nothing to do with it, but all I could think of was that scene in Spider-Man, you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us.
God.
Like, it had that energy of, like, we're all coming together. And I was like, oh, God. Like, are these cops going to say... And thankfully, thank Christ, not one of them said anything. And I was like, okay. Because if even one of them had been like, yeah, there's still good officers here, I would have been like, oh, no. Shut up. Like, we do not need this right now.
One thing for that scene I will say is it would have been a lot more depressing if we learned that Gordon literally is the only good cop in the city.
Yes.
That's very bleak.
Yeah. I feel like that's the vibe we
so-
got in, like, the Dark Knight trilogy. Like, the way he talks. So
Yeah, and that's what I mean.
What I was
like,
expecting.
that was... You would expect that. I think we all did. But I think I do like... It's very idealistic, but I like the idea better that Gordon isn't literally the only trustworthy cop in the whole
single
city.
trustworthy cop. It is nice. It is nice, but
Again, idealistic.
it
but
it could have been way more cringeworthy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad that it just was what it was and ended, because it could have very easily become insanely cringeworthy, but it didn't. So that's okay. I do want to touch on the Falcone thing with Selena and their relationship. That is, like, directly pulled from comics, and I loved every second of it. Like, so much so that I just, like, was in shock that it was even happening. I was like, I can't believe they're actually doing this, because it is directly from that. Her scratching him on the face and giving him the 3 scratch marks, directly from comics, like, directly, like, blown away. I was like, I can't believe they just did this. Like, it is a little bit not derailing, but it's almost like it is the B plot, and but the fact that the B plot was also just like something taken directly from comics, I was like, nice. That is incredible.
But also, I liked even how the idea of it was introduced, because it was when she was wearing those contacts, and then she met him in the, like, underground part of the bar, and Batman was so mad, and he's like, I didn't know you, like, were close with him, and he thought they were dating, and then, like, finding out it was his dad. That's gross. But, well, even that, I guess, like, he didn't know, because he also, like, hits on her all the time. Also gross. But it really, like, made me not think that was a possibility, obviously, because I didn't read the comic, so I didn't know it was in a comic.
Yeah.
So when that was revealed, it was a big shock, and I really liked that.
Because it works on the two fronts of, if you're not a comic fan, it still works in the story.
Well,
as
it explains
twist.
why she works there, even though she obviously like, hates it. And
yeah, it totally works. But if you are a fan, it's also a nice little, like, here's a bone for you. Like,
well, that's quintessential Matt Reeves of, like,
Planet of the Apes. Yeah, that's
like,
exactly what he does.
Writing in references, but he doesn't sacrifice good storytelling just for someone who wouldn't get the reference.
Yes. 100%.
Also,
it's like in Planet of the Apes, those the crosses.
Yeah,
like
in War for the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, in War. Carol, like,
we'll
talk about there.
But yeah, it doesn't matter. We'll get there.
Wait, have you never seen?
I have, but, like, I don't remember. Like, I saw them once, like, in high school because Marco made me.
Because I made you, yeah. Because you're great.
Okay, but just to talk about I keep wanting to say Falcone, but I'm gonna try
People
and say
will get
Falcone.
It doesn't matter. Say whatever. Like,
I know,
yeah.
I'm trying to.
It's a
be
fictional
only
piece
person
of
you'll piss
shit.
off
No
is
one's
that,
gonna
like-
be mad.
You'll only piss off New York Italians.
Well,
so, like,
yeah.
I think you're probably.
But also,
fine.
you might
Anyway,
not want to piss off New York Italians.
Fair. That is very fair.
better. Yeah, just to talk about Falcone in general.
Wait, sorry, Marco, are you drinking whiskey?
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
Why?
I was gonna ask earlier because I thought I saw you just sipping on whiskey. I guess it is Saturday. Go off.
We're talking about Batman.
How can you tell just from seeing
It's a
glass?
whiskey
Was it the
glass,
amber
yeah.
color?
Oh, that's a whiskey glass.
Looks like
I didn't
it,
know
yeah.
that. I'm just not familiar with different.
Whiskey glass is kind of like
They're, like,
shorter, like
shorter,
this.
yeah.
And then there's like cognac or brandy glasses, which are the ones that are like curved and you hold them like this, and there's a little like thing underneath.
I love
Oh,
those
like a
glasses.
Oh, like a smaller wine stem. Yeah, me
Yeah,
too. I like
to
cognac.
drink water
brandy
out of them.
glasses. Nice. I remember coming over to your house in high school and you were drinking water out of a brandy glass, and I was like,
They're
"What are you
nice
doing?"
to
Like,
hold.
yeah.
Sorry
yeah.
to
I've
derail.
done- No, it's okay. I've drank water out of like alcohol glasses. It's fun.
I have too, but normally like after I've been drinking and I need to sober up. Like we were just at Carol's house at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, and she was like, she had a brandy glass, and I was like, all right, Carol, whatever. And I'm the alcoholic on the podcast, but yeah, that's harsh. You were saying something
Yes.
about Falcone?
Yeah. So Falcone, in my opinion,
Falcone.
it's okay. Falcone is, I think, the best he's ever been on screen.
Yeah.
Me too.
I love Tom Wilkinson in Batman Begins. Like,
Oh,
he's such a meme.
He's hamming it up so much in that. Yeah.
But there's just something about the performance. Do you know the actor's name?
John Turturro.
Okay, that guy. As Falcone, it's like a completely different take. He's like a very old world
Yes.
Italian-American mobster who's like he's frail. He does absolutely none of the work himself. Like, he's not very intimidating himself.
Yeah.
But he's I think he's more real
Yes.
as a mobster.
Yes.
And just his performance, his line deliveries, everything, his costuming even.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's like equal parts more comic-y, but also more
Real.
believable at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, like Tom Wilkinson in Batman Begins, again, fantastic. No gun, I'm insulted. Like it's so great. Like it's so quotable. But it also very much is like generic. Like it's very generic. This is comic-y, but because the comic-y version is so based in like actual mobster stuff, it feels very real.
And mobsters were just gaudy anyway.
Yeah.
So that fits in with the comic booky aesthetic.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Whereas Tom Wilkinson was just sort of this guy in a suit.
Who sat at a place.
Yeah. At a location.
Wouldn't have a second hesitation of blowing your head off right now. What a great scene though in Batman Begins.
Yeah.
What a great scene. Oh, it's so good. But yeah, I know what you mean. This is quintessential Falcone. Like this is fantastic, fantastic. I do also have a few more positive things I'd like to touch on before we do a little nitpicky thing at the end here. The Batmobile chase is just chef's kiss of like so cool. I love the whole build up to the scene. And then I love just like you just hear the rev of the Batmobile, and like I'm not a car.
It's the first time you see it.
Yeah, and like I am not a like car guy, but like just hearing that, I was like, oh my god, here we fucking go. And again, in classic Batman movie fashion, or not Batman movie fashion, in like good Batman storytelling fashion, we really only get one chase scene with it, and it is fantastic. So good, so real. Penguin thinking he got away, Batman jumping through the fire.
I kind of wish
God,
they didn't
so
spoil that
good.
in the trailer. Because that would have been...
Me too.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Same. Because, like, and there honestly were a few moments in this where I was like, I mean, it made for such good trailer moments. But
yeah, you
fuck,
wish you hadn't seen it
oh
yet.
Oh my god. If we hadn't seen it and Batman came through that fire, I feel like that would have been, like, one of the most hype movie moments of all time.
Yes.
It would have been incredible, dude. Oh, man. I think that is sublime. And then also, just to touch on the end of the movie, with the bombs going off, Gotham
That
being
was
flooded.
intense.
Very good.
The bad guys kinda won.
Setting up something. Yeah.
That was wild. I wasn't expecting
Yeah,
that.
for sure. So, like, the guys are at the arena, right? And they have their rifles, and they're about to assassinate the mayor and all the elected officials, all of Riddler's
And
henchmen.
drown everyone
And-
else.
And you kill
Yeah.
everyone. So they're all in this arena, and I fucking love, the mayor's like, no, like, we don't have to be afraid of people like this. And she walks out and immediately gets shot. And I was like, yeah, because, like, that might... when she was saying that, I was like, okay, like nice movie moment, but also like
You're gonna get shot. Yeah.
there was no way you. And then she walked down and got shot, and I was like, yeah,
It's very Gotham.
very Gotham, and I fucking love like Gordon goes over and he crawls and he grabs her and he pulls her behind the thing, and he's just kind of like stuck behind the thing while the guys are there.
Yeah.
And then you get like this movie has so few of these moments intentionally, but just like a unbelievable badass moment of just the fucking ceiling explodes and Batman just drops down from the ceiling and fucks up everyone on that thing, and I was like, God damn it. Like, it is maybe my favorite Batman fight ever. Like, in cinema is that scene. It's just him working his way through those guys, taking shotgun shells to the chest and just being like, fuck it, and just like going hard on them. Oh my God, dude. It is so badass and so well choreographed. When the smoke bomb goes off and the scene from the trailer of him just going from one guy to the other guy to the other guy. Oh my God.
That was my favorite shot from all of the trailers.
Oh my God, it's so good. Like, I was like, God damn, like, you guys nailed this.
But I also will say in that final scene, because like at the end he's really hurt and Catwoman has to essentially save him until he like stabs himself and then saves her. Anyway, I missed when he got hurt. So when he was like on the ground and like fully couldn't get up, I'm like, wait, when did that happen?
Right.
Oh, you missed when he got when he took a shotgun to the chest?
Well, no, because that happened so many times and he like didn't react. So then I missed when there was like one that got through. You know what I mean?
There was one particular one that like really hit him hard where he was just like, oh fuck. I also loved it when he's hanging and the guy goes up and puts the shotgun right to his eye because that's where he doesn't have armor. I was like, yup, great, because that is a question. When we walked out of the movie, Angela was like, why would no one shoot him in the mouth? And I was like, well,
he did.
Someone did try to shoot him in the face, but like it just didn't end up happening. The adrenaline shot thing I want to talk about because it relates to a nitpick but also a theory I have for the future. So like we'll save that. Yeah, and then you get just the awesome ending of him like having to become something else, like not becoming Vengeance, because just for context, the last Riddler guy that he fucks up, Gordon asks who he is, and then his response is Vengeance, which has been Vengeance, which like is so good. Like I was not expecting that, and like seeing
and Batman's like, what have I done?
Yeah, Batman's like, fuck me, dude. Like I messed
Well, it's bad
up.
enough like having the Riddler think that they're working together, but then to have that thrown in his face, perfect.
Because in a way they kind of were working together, like unintentionally, but like like
against
the Riddler's
Batman's
right.
will,
Yeah.
Oh, quick thing.
Yeah.
One of the riddles was a maze. Do you think that had anything to do with the Batman the Animated Series episode where Riddler's has the maze?
I would like to think. I'm also really disappointed we didn't get a Riddler trophy anywhere in this movie.
That was a long shot.
It was, but like when we go to his apartment and it's all just random scramblings, me too. I was like, is there a goddamn Riddler trophy here? But no, that's okay. Yeah, the maze could have been a reference. Now that I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, maybe I'm just saying that because literally the night before
we just watched it.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone's drowning, and well, not drowning, but they're kind of just stuck in muddy
I thought
water.
Batman was gonna die when he like cut himself down. I was like, hello, like should you be doing this?
And electrocuted himself. Yeah.
But then he didn't. And
that relates. Like at the end of the 0 Year story, Batman has to do a similar thing where, in order to like kill power to something, he basically has to electrocute himself to do it. So this was very much like a homage to that of him like having to cut the wire and zap himself. Also,
but his suit's insulated anyway because he has the shocking thing. So.
Exactly. Oh, and it's also insulated from explosions, which we'll talk about when we get to nitpicks. But, so he falls into the water, and then we get just like I think my favorite scene in the whole movie of him lighting the flare and going to lead the people out, and everyone being afraid except for the mayor's son, who, as we all know, will be Robin one day.
We'll see.
Takes them and carries them all out, and we get now the callback to Something in the Way from Nirvana playing again, which again I promise before nitpicks I will get into why I think this song is so important, and then we get his monologue, his final voiceover being like, I fucked up.
And
we're quoting the movie exactly.
Yeah, his actual line was, I fucked up, sorry.
Oh, there actually is an F-bomb in this movie.
Right at the beginning, too. He's like, the fuck is he doing here or something? And I was like, oh shit, okay. Yeah, I absolutely love this ending. I don't know about you guys. I thought this was so sick. And also, like, we're talking about the cinematography. Again, this is, like, really some of outside of, like, the relationship stuff with him and Catwoman, some of the only like truly beautiful cinematography of like it's supposed to be pleasant to look at as opposed to grimy or badass to look at, of just him like very beautifully like bringing these people out and leading them literally into the light because it's daytime. And yeah, and he has his voiceover and he's like, I have to become something better. And then he like looks into the sky as these people are being taken off. And then instead of cutting to credits, we cut to 2 very bad scenes, which we'll talk about in nitpicks.
Well, okay.
One very bad scene and then one
Yeah.
fine scene that probably
You have more of a problem with it than I do.
Yes.
But I know you'll say your reasoning.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean that's the movie. I just want to say also we didn't really talk about it, but like the actual relationship stuff with him and Catwoman. I mean they're hot. Like I totally I bought them. They nailed the comic thing of like the silhouette of them just like holding each other on a rooftop and kissing. Like you get that shot in this, and I was like, yep.
It looks great, but
Like,
I don't think
I
I get the motivation.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was just gonna say a lot of them being together in this feels
Just 'cause
like
they're hot.
because Catwoman and Batman are hot and always end up together. And there is more to it. Like they work
Sure.
together. Like he helps her through this traumatic thing, and she helps him. Whatever. Like
He's
I get it. Like
there
there's
for
obviously more to
her
it than
when
that.
no one else was.
For sure. It is a little fast, but also like when you go back and watch any other Batman movie, it's always
Yeah.
fast. Like him and Anne Hathaway, like they have no
No.
chemistry. Michelle Pfeiffer is just licking Michael Keaton from like the first scene they're together. So like I'm fine with it. Like I thought it was beautifully shot.
And also, I appreciate there's no
Yeah.
sex scene.
No
An
sex scene.
awkward Batman Catwoman sex scene. We already
Nope.
got that in Ingrid Goes West. We don't need
Absolutely.
it again.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's just the one very nice, beautiful silhouetted kiss on the rooftop, which I was like, yep, that is fantastic. I do want to talk about that rooftop, by the way, for a sec. Because you guys were talking, or Carol, you had brought up like a lot of the sets
Yeah.
in this movie and stuff. They actually used, I don't know, do you guys know what the volume is? Have
No.
you guys heard of this?
No.
Okay, so for the Disney Plus like Mandalorian show, because that show had to be a way smaller budget, they pioneered this, not pioneered, but like they came up with this new idea of shooting, which was instead of using green screen and heavy CGI, going back to the idea of like rear projecting. So like back in the day for visual effects, they would just have like a projector screen with an image, and then you would shoot actors in front of that image, right? So what the Mandalorian started doing was they created this room that was all basically LED screens, and you could build the image in LED screens and then shoot your actors in that room. So every scene in this movie of them being on the rooftop with the bat signal, the entire city skyline and everything is all just LED screen.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I saw some behind the scenes for it. So I just think I also think it's cool because it looks more real than CG. It looks more real than green screen. Like you would never know that
Yeah.
that's what it is. But it's obviously like way more cost effective and safer than like going to the top of a skyscraper in a Batman costume. You know? So like just a really cool
also,
way to shoot.
And I'm sure part of it was like Gotham City doesn't look like a real
Yeah.
Exactly. It
city,
doesn't
so
exist.
you needed some sort of fake city backdrop anyway.
And from a cinematography perspective, it's like there's so many scenes on the rooftop where it's like very specific
Yeah.
lighting, like early morning, end of day, like very specific lighting. And it's like to actually try to shoot that, like realistically. And I've heard horror stories of film productions where it's like, yeah, we had to do this once a day for a month because we could only do it once a day to get this very
Yeah.
specific lighting. And so to do as many takes as we needed took a month. Whereas for this, it's like, well, we control the lighting. It's a fake image. So like it allows you to get a better image, which is why I think so much of this movie is beautiful to look at, like especially those rooftop scenes, because it's like they had full control of the lighting. So it could be this like sunset lighting and just keep it at sunset lighting for 4 hours while
Yeah.
you shot and get the exact image you wanted to get, which
It's a lot more efficient.
I think is cool. I want to quickly just talk about Something in the Way from Nirvana, which I said plays twice in this movie. It also played very heavily in the
Yes.
trailers. Matt Reeves talked a lot about how he listened to that while writing the first act of this movie. It was very influential in terms of Bruce being, as Carol mentioned, like a Kurt Cobain-esque loner who just hangs out and like is sad all the time. But I didn't want to pull up like I did a little bit of research about the song itself to find out like what was the context for it and like when Kurt Cobain wrote it and what was it about. And I guess he wrote it at a point in his life when he was like, or maybe not wrote it then, but wrote it about a point of his life when he was homeless and like basically living off scraps. And if you listen to a lot of the lyrics of the song, it's him basically trying to like justify his actions for bad stuff that he's doing because of the situation that he's in. So like one of the lyrics is, it's okay to eat fish because they don't have any feelings. So like I pulled that lyric in specific because when the song first plays at the start of the movie, that's very much what Batman is doing, justifying his actions because of the situation he's in, which is like, yeah, I have trauma, so it's okay that I'm going around punching people in the face, and also like criminals don't have feelings, they're all assholes, so like it's okay that I'm acting this way. So like that's a really cool thing. But then also the song foreshadows the ending of the movie. So the first like few lyrics of the song are, underneath the bridge, tarp has sprung a leak, and the animals I've trapped have all become my pets. And like literally the climax of this movie is the Riddler floods the city and traps everyone in a stadium.
Cool.
Which I thought was very cool and clever, and could be just like a coincidence, but I mean,
no way.
Like this song was so heavily like involved, clearly, and I dug its use in the movie because we never get licensed music in Batman movies. Like we only ever get score, and this movie has a great score,
well, except for the Batman Forever soundtrack.
Oh my god! Well.
And the Batman '89 Prince song.
Oh my! How could I forget about the Prince song from '89?
I guess we're just thinking about the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah,
I guess real Batman movies. Yeah,
yeah, the real ones. But yeah, so to get licensed music, but to only have it really be like this song, and to use it twice, right at the beginning, to sort of foreshadow what this movie's about and what he's feeling, and then to do it at the end when like that arc has come full circle, I thought was like really clever and smart. And also at the beginning. So we only ever hear it when he's narrating. So like we hear it at the beginning when he's narrating, and we hear it now. And at the beginning, you see him after he gets back to the Batcave, like writing in his journal, writing the narration down, and he's like diegetically listening to the song on the radio. Like he turns the radio down when Alfred walks into the room.
Oh, I didn't notice.
Yeah.
That.
So the idea, I think, being that like after he's done being Batman for the day, he goes home and listens to Nirvana because he's like a fucking emo guy, and he writes about his day in a journal. And
that's
so like
clever though.
It's so not only is it like thematically relevant, but it's also like context in the movie of why the two times we hear it is when he's narrating, because that's when he's journaling about what happened.
Wow.
Which is cool.
This movie's awesome.
Yeah, fantastic.
I only like it more after recording this episode.
It's time for nitpicks. Alrighty, here we go. All right, you go first because I've been talking a lot.
Okay, so my two were that there were very many moments in which we were just blinded. I was squinting at the screen because, like, it's completely dark and then a flashlight is pointed at you. Or the light of a phone. Or, like, the headlights of a bike or a car. And everything else is black. I'm literally in the theater just trying to enjoy this film. And because, like, it is dark and, like, raining all the time. Like, so much rain.
Well,
Never not raining.
Yeah.
But yeah, so because it's so dark, whenever that happens and it's like directly into the camera, I felt like I was looking at an actual flashlight, and I was like, I'm not ready for this. The light, I'm in a dark theater. Why are you doing this to me? So that was a little bit annoying, but like still like a cool like thing to do. Like it wouldn't have been as jarring if I'm like watching it in my bedroom, but like on a gigantic movie theater screen, I was like, I'm blind. And then what was my other nitpick? I had it, but I lost it? ? Come back to me. I'm going to read through my notes.
There's a scene that I really love in this movie that I also have a nitpick with, which is the explosion of Gil Coulson. And look, I love this scene. I love the idea of the Riddler being like, solve these 3 riddles or else I'm going to blow you up. I think that's cool. As we all know, I love the first riddle. It can be cruel, poetic, or blind. It's justice. The answer is justice.
Yeah.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Here's my problem with this scene, and we talked about it a little bit, is like, it's the only scene in the movie where I was like, this doesn't feel like something characteristically Batman would do. Because he's just standing there, not remotely trying to come up with a backup plan. He's just like, yeah, man, so answer the riddles and we'll be fine. And I'm like, but like, why don't you try and think your way out of the situation in another way? And then when he doesn't answer the last riddle, Batman just goes up close to him and is like, you have to, like, the bomb's about to blow up, and he gets closer to him to just yell at him to answer the riddle, and then he explodes.
That was so dumb.
And, like, is totally, like, I understand, obviously, like, it's a superhero movie. He's not gonna die. I get it. But, like, couldn't have had, like, a bloody lip. Like, nothing. He fucking blows up and just is, like, knocked out, and then wakes up at the, like, police headquarters, and immediately is just, like, fighting guys. Like, no problem. He's like, yep, I'm up. Fuck you. I'm like, dude, are you not sore? Like, the concussive blast from the explosion would have fucked you up.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, like... I
That's
needed...
fair. I was also questioning how he would have realistically survived that.
You know what I mean?
In terms of, so like with the bomb thing, what else would he have been able to do though?
Probably nothing. And I'm, by the way,
But
I'm
he
okay
could
with
have ran away. Like just basic. Could have turned around and ran
And
away.
just left. But see, that wouldn't have been very bad.
That
to
wouldn't.
leave him.
I like the idea though that it's like the Gordon scene where he just punches him and then runs away. Like that would have been hilarious. But no, like I think for me I'm okay with him. I'm okay with like Coulson dying because Batman can't save him. But I just wish Batman was doing something in the scene other than standing there waiting. Like at least have him like try to figure out like I don't know, try to trace the call or like just something other than I'm just here watching this happen. Because then it's like, why are you even there? Like, why was he physically in that scene? Like, other than, I know he had to answer the phone call and the explosion, whatever. But, like, he literally contributed nothing other than helping him solve the first riddle. Like, just try to do something.
That might
like,
also be why the Riddler thought he was working with him, too. And he was so surprised when he wasn't. Yeah.
like the Arkham games, like pull out the fucking cryptographic sequencer and be like, keep him on the phone. Like I have to like trace this call.
True,
and then
yeah.
like
that would have actually been a good opportunity to use
just
that.
like a tiny, just have him do something. But like he didn't. And again, it is absolutely a nitpick.
Yeah.
Does not like does not make the movie bad, but like did stand out to me where I was kind of like, he really is just hanging out. It is what it is.
I found my other nitpick, and it might tie in with one of your later nitpicks if I was picking up what you were putting down.
Okay. Yeah, I think you were. So let me do
okay.
I have one more nitpick before that one, and then we'll get to that one.
Okay.
Okay, so first of all, let's make this clear. This movie has an hour of footage left on the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
This was a 4-hour movie that they cut out, okay? So I think my nitpick and the nitpick all three of us have, that's going to be next.
I actually have another nitpick then, because I also,
Fantastic. So here's mine. Is at the end of the movie, we talked about this a little bit outside the theater, Dan. Batman gets fucked up, and then he's kind of like can't get up and he's fucked, and Selina is in peril and about to die, and so he takes an adrenaline shot to get up and go save her. It's a little bit like very much breaks the Chekhov's gun rule of like, you have an adrenaline shot. And here's why. Like, I'll explain why. Because you were like, yeah, I mean, whatever. He just has an adrenaline shot. And, like, I do get that because it is Batman and he's prepared for anything.
Yeah.
Totally. I guess my problem is that's not something Batman would typically have. Like, Batman just having a grapple gun, I'm like, yeah, he always has. Batman having bombs, Batman having a batarang. All those things to me, I'm like, I get that. Like, that is typical, like, a day in the life. Like, this is my daily carry. This is what I bring with me. It's like I get all that. The adrenaline shot is, like, not something I've ever really seen him use. So for him to also just have it in this movie, I got to imagine somewhere in the extra hour that was cut, there was some type of scene of him like finding it or having it and this I guess ties into something else, which is the idea that maybe it's not adrenaline, maybe it is venom, which is the compound. If you guys remember from our Dark Knight Rises episode, in the comics, Bane isn't the first person to use the formula that he uses to get strong. Batman used an earlier version of that formula and then got addicted to it and then had to like basically go through withdrawal and get off of it. And so I think there is a world in which this could be that, and like maybe it carries into the next movie and maybe he's like starts to get addicted to this thing that like gives him like roid rage and whatever. Yeah. But I don't know. It just it stuck out to me a little bit of like, oh, all right, like I guess that's a thing that he has. I just like just one scene of Alfred being like, what's that? And him being like, this is the obligatory I'm showing it to you scene, so when I use it later, like everyone knows I have it. Like just something like that. That I got it like in the hour of content that was cut, 100% it must have been in there. Like I can't imagine that it wasn't.
Yeah.
This is a movie I'm interested in seeing the director's cut for.
Me too. Like all the deleted scenes and shit. Like yeah.
Or even just if they come out with like a 4-hour.
Oh, I would watch the hell out of a 4-hour cut of this. All right, Carol?
Yeah, so my other nitpick is a small one, but it's when Batman and Selina are, like, saying goodbye to each other, and they, like, have their motorcycles, and it, like...
Yeah.
Are they not, like, on the balcony of a building with their motorcycles?
Oh,
yeah.
Where are they
No, it was like a mausoleum.
Their motorcycles?
Was it? Graveyard. Yeah, because there were graves there. She was visiting a grave.
Oh, okay. You're right.
Because it looked like a balcony of a building, and I'm like, how do you drive out of here? Or even into here? And that was my nitpick. I was like, I don't understand how
Yeah, it was just like an elevated part of the graveyard.
Okay.
I have a nitpick with that entire scene.
Yes. That's what I was picking up. Because you said, like, the last two scenes. And obviously we all know, like, the last scene that you're talking about.
So let's go there first. Dan, you can lead this one since this is probably the only real nitpick you have.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so...
So wait, 1 sec. Let's establish again. Batman saves the people. We get his narration. The movie ends where it begins with the Nirvana song. He looks up into the light. The camera holds on him. It's a badass shot. We cut to black. Do we cut to credits? No. We cut to Arkham Asylum.
Yes.
Take it away, Dan.
So Riddler's in Arkham Asylum, and wouldn't you know it, his cell neighbor is the Joker.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe?
And also not just the Joker, but like the Lego Batman Joker. Like, when I say that, I mean like this guy is acting like it's a Saturday morning cartoon.
It's not good.
It is maybe one of the worst Joker performances I've ever heard in my life, and I didn't even see his face. And, like, it made me so unbelievably unexcited to ever see Batman fight this Joker.
Yes, but I said maybe because he's purposefully named in the credits Unseen Arkham whatever.
Yeah.
It's obviously supposed to be the Joker, but we think they're probably seeing how it plays out with audiences. Like, they could easily retcon it so that if there was a Joker in this universe, it would eventually be a completely different person.
But then would they say this was no one, or?
Well,
Maybe.
they would have to. Maybe it's the Mad Hatter. I don't know. But I like. Here's.
Well,
so,
he does specifically say clown, but
And
Yeah.
it also
He
does
does.
kind of look, because you don't really see his face, but like through the bars, it does kind of look like he has cuts on his mouth, or like there's
Yeah.
something disformed
didn't
in the
notice that.
mouth-ish area.
they're doing that again.
Yeah, it
They're
looks
doing
kinda
cuts
weird.
Well,
on
that's
I
the
don't
thing.
know.
Even like someone I was with originally thought it was Two-Face before they started talking about clowns, because there was some kind of facial deformation that you couldn't really tell exactly what it was. Like, it's not clear that it's cuts, but like there's some kind of scarring somewhere.
Fuck, who else has a...
If it was Two-Face, he would have said, "Isn't it great how there's two of us here?" And we all would have went, "Oh, Two-Face." Look, here's the thing. Also, is not just the performance, not just the fact that it's the Joker. Nobody wants to see the Joker again. It is also just the sheer, unbelievable garbage of the writing in this scene. Like, this was as bad as at the end of the Justice League movie when Lex Luthor's like, "Oh, looks like we need a league of our own," and him and Deathstroke are like, "Oh, ho, ho, ho," and they're like twirling their mustaches. Like, what the fuck was this scene?
It's
dude?
also
like,
just like... It's the only scene in this perfectly self-contained movie that just does not...
no.
It's such an odd one out.
Okay, so now let's
it
get
definitely
into.
like could have been a post-credit, and that was like the vibe it gave off.
Yeah,
Very
but
much.
I think they just didn't want to do a post-credit.
Yeah.
That's why.
Well, except for the dumb URL that I
Yeah,
can't
oh,
believe
we
we stayed
didn't-
for. God
yeah,
damn it.
we...
Yeah, I
couldn't
was
catch
also a
that
little
either.
mad, but it gave me time to write my notes. So
Yeah. I should just say, so we do have one thing confirmed from the hour that was cut, and that is there was a Hannibal Lecter-esque scene where Batman goes to Arkham to talk to the Joker. There was a full scene with the Joker.
But
where
is he actually called the Joker, or is it like maybe this is the Joker?
I don't know if he's called the Joker by name, but I think you see him and like it is the Joker in
Whoa.
the scene. Like they
He's
actually
like already got the makeup on
Yeah.
and
I
stuff?
hate that.
Yeah, and I think the premise of it was, from what I understand, that like they already fought in year one, and he put him in Arkham, which we actually talked about in our video of like
did.
maybe the Joker already existed, but we don't have to go through their first meeting, and like he just exists in the universe. Yeah, so I hope since they cut that scene out that maybe they never acknowledge this, and we just never see the
Yeah.
Joker.
Well, there's a reason they did, and I hope the reason is that they had second thoughts about this
Me
Joker.
too. Me too. But then
can
why
only
not
hope.
just cut this scene out? Like I don't
Just to-
understand.
I don't know, just leave a little thread hanging. But we didn't need it at
We
all.
did not.
but
need
also
it.
the guy playing him is from the Marvel universe.
I know, he's from the Eternals.
he is a
and I
dumb
hate
Well,
that.
yeah,
face.
the movie
I
that
hate that
Marco's
actor.
never seen. Yeah.
Let's now get into
By all accounts, he's probably a perfectly decent human being.
Sure, but
For
this
all we
was this was like Cesar Romero Joker performance. I was like, oh my! I was like, are we watching Batman
Was it
'66? Like,
Better or worse than Jared Leto?
no, I think it's worse. I think it's worse
Really?
than Jared Leto. Like,
Really?
you guys
I think
know,
Jared Leto is worse.
Jared Leto is my least favorite human being of all time. But like at least that
That's saying
was just something like weird and different. Like it was sort of not inoffensive. It was offensive, but like it was very like sexual and odd. But like this was just like a cartoon, like maniacal idiot like laughter. Literally
Yeah, his
Cesar
laugh is
Romero
horrible.
Joker, where I was like, Jared Leto didn't feel like he was in Batman '66. It wasn't good, but it at least felt like it belonged in the universe of that movie.
Sure.
This feels like a Batman '66 character is in Matt Reeves The Batman, and I was like, that is maybe the worst
But at
combination.
At least Cesar Romero had a better laugh.
Yes.
It
No,
was-
I hated everything about this scene. It was unbelievable. Like Dan and I looked at him and I was like, Dan, my God.
As
what
I
is
was
it-
watching it, I was like, the guys are gonna hate this.
Oh, and we did. The final nitpick is then the scene after this, which is the last scene of the movie. And here's my whole premise,
Wait,
right?
for the record, I actually like this scene. Marco told me outside of the theater last night that he does not
I like
that
it.
doesn't go for both of us.
I hate it, but we'll talk about why. I mean, no, here's what it is for me, honestly, right? It's just an editing thing for me of, like, every Batman movie has ended on a moment of, like, and the war goes on, and it's, like, a really hype, fun moment. Like, I think about Batman Begins, I think about Dark Knight, I think about Dark Knight Rises, and this movie has that moment, and it's when Batman carries the kids out, and he has this narration, and he looks up into the sky, and it's like, we're done. And I think for me, it's not even so much like having a resolution between Batman and Catwoman. Like, I don't mind that they have a resolution, but in that narration Batman gives, right, when he's carrying the kid out, we cut to other characters. We cut to the Penguin, played by Colin Farrell, as Batman is saying, like, people are going to start, like, eating up territory and things are only going to get worse and whatever. So, like, why couldn't we have sort of cut to Bruce and Selina saying goodbye, like, outside of chronological time during Batman's narration, have them say bye then, and then still end the movie at that moment of, like, Batman choosing to be this new person and, like, in this triumphant moment. To me, this feels a little bit deflating of, like, okay, so we have this triumphant moment, and then we have the worst scene in the movie, and then we have a follow-up scene where Bruce and Selina really established nothing that needed to be established. Like, nobody else got this. Alfred didn't get a final establishing scene. Nobody got a final establishing scene except Bruce and Selina.
Is Alfred still in the hospital?
Yeah, where's Alfred? And the only the only thing we find out, by the way, is that she's leaving.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, but, like, you also could have started the next movie with her being gone and, like, coming back to Gotham. And Bruce being like, man, that was fucked up that you left. Like, I don't think you absolutely need that here. And even outside of that, let's say I'm wrong, very well could be, and, like, it is important that we see what happens with their relationship. I still think intercut that and montage it during Batman's final speech the way that the Nolan movies do, of, like, at the end of Dark Knight when Gordon's giving a speech and we tie up what happened with Lucius, we tie up what happened with Alfred, we tie everything up, we end on a final triumphant moment of Batman. During Batman's speech in this, we tie up Penguin, we could have tied up Alfred, we can tie up Bruce and Selina, and then we end with a triumphant moment of Batman. And instead, we get the scene where she's like, all right, I'm leaving, I'm going to Bloodhaven because Nightwing, and we all go, yeah, Nightwing, woo! And then
Nightwing doesn't exist yet.
And then we get, again, like, for me, what is just a badly put together scene. And, like, what I mean by that is, she says bye, he says okay, she gets on her bike and leaves.
And then they follow
Batman
each other.
stands there. Batman stands there for, like, 3 seconds, and then it's like, oh yeah, and then gets on his bike and follows her. Weird. Why would they not just leave at the same time? Whatever. Then they drive together for, like, a minute.
Yeah.
We just watch them driving around through the city as if, and here's the other thing, like, if there was a scene earlier in the movie where the two of them, like, were on some kind of chase together and it was some kind of, like, romantic cute thing of, like, him chasing her or, like, whatever, and then we got this, I would have been like, yeah, but it's like they're driving around together as if this was a thing that they do, and I'm like, this never happened.
Maybe it was in the hour. You don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, there's, like, lots of scenes where they're both on their motorcycle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just,
but I
like,
don't know.
separately.
It was so
No, even together. There's a couple scenes where they're both driving motorcycles together.
I think there was, like, one where they were going back to her apartment.
Actually, yeah, he was tailing her back to her apartment.
Yeah.
Okay, then sure, it's a callback to that. But even still, I think it goes on way too long. Like, it is laughable how long it goes on for. And then you get maybe the most egregious thing I've ever seen in my life, which is they pull up next to each other, and then fucking "See You Again" by Charlie Puth should start playing because they give each other the
It was
Fast
very
and Furious look of, like,
that's what my friend said.
and then like CGI Paul Walker is there, and then they just go in the opposite directions. And then the movie ends on this really weird note of, like, Batman's just, like, on his bike, and that's just the last frame of the movie, and we cut. And I'm like, I don't know, it didn't have, like, the energy I'm accustomed
That's
to
fair.
with the end of a Batman movie. Like, I just, and we had a scene literally 2 scenes earlier that had that energy, and so if there was a way to montage through wrapping up what happened with Selina instead of having, like, a prolonged
That's
Fast
fair.
and Furious moment with them and just cut out the fucking Joker scene,
Definitely get rid of the Joker scene.
like, that's everything. And honestly, I might even like this scene more if the Joker scene didn't exist. Like, I think it's one of those things where, like, if it went right from the awesome scene to this scene, I kind of still would have been like, we probably could have ended on the awesome scene, but whatever. But I think having that Joker scene in the middle, I was really like,
it really is the most puzzling decision of this movie.
I was like, man, that was a bad fucking choice to put this taste in our mouth before.
I feel like that must not have been Matt Reeves' decision.
Yeah.
I'm sure the studio saw that there was Joker content, and they're like, at least include this scene.
The studio was like, we need more Joker.
Yeah.
You know what was a good movie? Joker 2019. We need more of that.
I wasn't sure if it was going to be Joaquin Phoenix in there. I was like, are we connecting the worlds?
For a little while.
It wasn't, but...
Honestly, I think I would have preferred that. Because, like...
Well, yeah, he's a better Joker.
Because he's a better Joker.
But...
Like, I obviously don't want them to be in continuity together, but if the option is, like, have Joaquin play Joker or have
guy?
Barry play Joker,
absolutely.
like, I'd rather have Joaquin, so...
all I was going to say, though, in regard to this Catwoman thing, I'm not really sure if they had done the Nolan thing of montaging it with showing the scene, no dialogue or audio from the scene, just, like, showing it over top of Batman's narration. I feel like it would have been too out of the blue, like, where she's leaving all of a sudden, like, where's she going? Personally, I feel the scene explaining that, like, she wants to get out of the city after having made the decision in the climax to turn back and help Batman with, like, the whole Riddler situation in the end.
I mean, she didn't, like, really have a choice. The police wouldn't let her leave.
Fair, okay. But even still, for her to then double back on the decision to leave, I feel like that would have come out of nowhere, at least in my opinion, if we hadn't had that...
Like a conversation?
Yeah. We'll never know, I guess.
Or, again, like, potentially just explain it at the top of the next movie. Like...
That is also a possibility.
Because, like, I just...
But I wouldn't have wanted to, like, wait that long to find out that...
I don't want to wait this long for anything. I'm so excited for the next movie, but, like...
Their relationship, I thought, was pretty crucial. Well, it was very crucial in this movie. Yeah. So I feel like not having anything at the end would have been worse, definitely. I guess the question is, could they have montaged it, or is this the best way?
Have her be, like, at the evacuation site with him, like, after he's let everyone out, and maybe, like, stop his monologue, his inner monologue. They have a conversation. She leaves there, and then he, like, continues his inner monologue, and that's when the movie kind of ends there. Just... I don't know. It is absolutely not crucial at all. None of these nitpicks are like...
Yeah.
Well, the Joker one is.
That's the only one that I'm like, this is bad. Everything else is not bad. It is just sort of like, there may have been another way. But also, again, in the 4-hour cut of this movie, it might make way more sense. Like, the Bruce and Selena scene might not even be the last scene in the 4-hour cut of the movie. Maybe there is something else after. You know, I'm fully willing to understand that, like, you know, it's close enough. It's close enough. Like, you still hit all the things. Like, I'm not that upset about it. But
do we want to just go through your list of predictions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do this. Here we go.
So, for the record, what we're doing here is are we doing all the ones we got right or wrong?
I'm going to list all of them and say which ones we got right. So we'll go through. I'm going to list it. We'll say, did we get it right or wrong?
Okay.
Because I wrote them all down. Okay. Number 1, Martha being in Arkham.
Correct.
Yeah. Fuck yeah, we got that. Number 2, Thomas Wayne not being a saint, a part of the lies of Gotham.
Correct.
Pretty much.
Number 3, Court of Owls.
Incorrect.
Not exactly.
Number 4, I'm not going to number these because I'm going to forget.
Yeah.
Penguin's mob owns public officials, and he's not working with the Riddler, and he's up and coming. I think that's fair.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay, got that. Catwoman reins Batman in.
He reins her in more so.
Yeah, I think he reins her in.
Yeah.
Also, I appreciate the fucking commitment to the not kill rule and the don't using guns. I was like, God damn it. Yeah, hell yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so we were pretty wrong about that.
Yeah, so that one is definitely not correct. Okay, Catwoman having a Batman Year 1 look. The scene where she goes to kill Falcone, she is wearing her exact Year 1 costume. So I'm going to give us that. That was absolutely killer. Having a rift between Batman and Catwoman because of the Robin from the sewer definitely did not happen. Batman getting the no-kill rule from Catwoman definitely did not happen. Okay, I said put this one down.
Murder everyone.
Yeah, it was quite the opposite, actually.
I said put this down 100% in the video. So let's see if I got it right, okay? Catwoman is going to help him understand that not everything is black and white. She's the physical character to embody the metaphor of the movie, which is that you can be good and bad at the same time. Those are my exact words in the video, and I think I pretty much hit the nail on the head with that one.
I'd say she did that for sure.
How does their relationship end? She finds out the truth and there is a rift. No, that doesn't really... We really expected there to be some type of big rift between them.
But you don't have it on the list, but I think you also mentioned, like, she's going to go away at the end of the movie. There's going to be, like, they're going to be separate. There's going to be some sort of separation.
Okay.
So you got that right.
Yeah.
I'll give myself this one.
It's a little bit different, but...
Close enough. It's all the ending. Batman with the flare after the Riddler floods the city, and one of those kids is going to be Robin. Yeah, I mean, I think, like, it's not...
We don't know for sure yet.
I'm giving ours that one. Come on. That kid is going to be Robin. I don't give a shit.
Okay.
I'm giving us that one. I am committed to that.
Okay.
Hold me to it.
Well, then we have to give ourselves the Owls one.
Okay, fine. I won't give us that one. I just laughed at my next one, which is Selena leaving because he adopted a sewer kid. Yeah, that's definitely not what happened. Okay, Alfred being Earth 1 Alfred, Wayne's bodyguard, trained Bruce how to fight.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Alfred being the guy in the chair. Kinda.
Not
He helps
really.
him cipher the riddles at the beginning, but like that's
It's like
it.
half.
Yeah. He was pretty
Half
hands
and
off
half.
though. Surprisingly hands off.
All right, I won't give this one to us then. That's fine.
Half point.
Okay. Well, I only have check
We're not
marks,
even
so-
keeping track, so it's fine.
I'm just checking them off on my little list here. So, Riddler will have a tie to the Waynes. Yeah, he was an orphan. Riddler will know Bruce Wayne is Batman. Can't believe we got this one wrong, but I guess
Yeah.
he doesn't. So
Because we were led to believe that he would.
fuck us. The Penguin just exists in Gotham. Batman shows up to get info. That is absolutely what he's used for in this movie. He will be an early capture for Batman. Debatable. Like, it's not really early. Like, it's more.
Yeah,
the
I thought it would
middle.
happen earlier than it did.
Yeah, so we'll hold on to this.
And he's not even out of the movie after
Yeah.
that, so that's kind of wrong.
Yeah.
Completely.
Riddler tips Batman off about Penguin in the interrogation scene. We were totally wrong about that. I think we all expected the interrogation scene to be more like the Dark Knight one, where it takes place earlier. But the interrogation scene takes place like right at the end of the movie. So the nightclub is the Iceberg Lounge.
Correct.
That
Fuck
was
yeah, it is. Absolutely
spot
stellar
on.
prediction. Joker will be a person who exists already, alluded to in passing. Yeah.
Not exactly alluded to in passing, but he does exist.
But he does
already.
exist. And also, like, we don't see him, so I guess it, like, yeah. But
It's
I know
unconfirmed.
what you mean. The funeral scene with the car, Riddler gives him his next clue. I don't know what that means, but yeah, that happened. So
There was a clue. The car
wasn't
was
really
a
far-fetched.
clue.
I like how we just said something. We were like, "There's gonna be a scene with the car
And a clue?
we're listening to the clue. Introduction of Harvey Dent. We did not
Nope.
get that, unfortunately. Marco's entire suit theory. He technically does flee the police and crash. Yeah, I do want to talk about this. This is one of my favorite scenes in the movie where after he's flee the police, he gets up to the rooftop and he like walks out and goes, "Oh shit!" Like he is like so taken aback by how high up he is.
Yeah.
It reminds me of in Spider-Man: Homecoming, the first time he's at the top
Me
of the
too.
building. Yeah, when he's like, but then like obviously like later into his Spider-Man career, like it's nothing for him.
Yeah.
And also he does fly away and his suit crashes. So technically he did flee the police and break his suit, but he doesn't get a new suit.
Yeah.
So like that's fine.
Yeah, you guys really
Um,
wanted a new suit.
Because this suit looks great in silhouette, and the cowl and cape are fantastic, and I hope he replaces the armor next time.
It's a good first movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever this movie's equivalent of Why Do We Fall? I mean, we did get
Kinda.
that scene. Like, he's
Yeah.
with Alfred and they hold
Sure,
hands.
but
and
I
it's
wouldn't
like-
say there was like an iconic line.
No.
But
there
it
definitely
gave off
wasn't.
the same energy.
We had the same scene,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, there wasn't the iconic line. Which, again, is why I tend to like that movie more, because it, like,
Yeah.
distills it down to a line of, like, this is the line, but whatever. I fucking nailed this one. Start of the movie is from the thug's perspective on Halloween, and
Yep.
Batman's fighting them
Yeah.
is the first scene. Fuck. When
It's
that
his
happened,
first scene.
I was like, yeah, end of the movie's a callback to that? Absolutely not. We didn't
Nope.
get the I Am Vengeance, I'm the Night, I'm Batman.
Ironically, we did get a callback to I Am Vengeance.
Just not
We
for
did, but just not
Batman
the
at
one
all.
we thought. Not the one we thought. Okay, we got 15 out of 28.
Okay.
So like just over 50%, which is what I said. We were like,
Hell yeah, buddy, we passed 53%.
Good job.
yeah, I guess we got about
A
half.
D.
The bare minimum pass.
D's get degrees.
Exactly.
We could write half a Batman movie.
That would be an hour and a half.
Yeah, there we go.
It's feature length.
Yeah.
Speaking of feature length,
Thanks again for listening to the Feature Length Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean a lot to us if you liked this video or audio. Give us a rating and review. If you want to stay up to date with the latest episodes of this podcast, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the bell to be notified when we post a new video, or follow the podcast on Spotify. If you want to connect with us directly, you can follow us on Instagram at featurelengthpodcast, or even send us an email at featurelengthpodcast@gmail.com. Catch you on the flip side.